Okay, guys, this is an important video. So I'm gonna give the intro again here. This guy, the guy you're about to listen to, his name is Loads of Money. Okay, he is the leader of Digital, which is the strongest guild in North America. They were the second strongest guild as long as Cho Nation was a guild. Okay, they were a very, very strong presence back then. I've played against them many, many times. Loads has been around on the PvP scene as a bit of a legend. I'll explain why in a second. For about as long as I have, if not longer. He was around shot calling, I think even before, right around the time I started, maybe a little after I started. No, he was there before. And he's been with Digital basically the whole time. Anyway, he's the guild master now. Didn't start that way. And a lot of people have a lot of respect for him because if anyone understands large scale PvP better than anyone, it would be the guild leaders of the primary guilds in your various regions. So like, for example, whoever the guild leads are for the top guilds in EU, those players probably know the game better than anyone else as far as PvP goes. Those players know the game better than anyone. Okay. And it's because when you're in a leadership role, you understand what people want more and you just understand the community better in that role. And you also, it forces you to inherently understand the game at a level that is just higher and above everyone else's. And another thing is that Loads is widely regarded as one of the greatest shot callers that Black Desert Online has ever seen in the game's history. Like depending on who you talk to, Loads is number 1, number 2, or number 3. And if you're asking me, I would say that Loads is number 1 or number 2 every day. Every day. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him, and he made this video. My guess is that he probably made this video after I announced that I would be more than happy to platform people's ideas in the community. I don't know if this is true, but I did announce that I was willing to, if you just recorded your video, if you just record a video about your thoughts on the game, whether they're good or bad, something like that you want to praise Perlibus for, or something that you don't like about the game, or something that you feel could be changed, record the video, submit it to me. I will platform that as a react on my channel so that it can get some visibility and that we can try to get some feedback through. So I hope that Loads heard that. Maybe this video is a result of that. Maybe it's just a result of him thinking that it's time to make a video about something like this. Either way, he sent it directly to me. Out of respect for Loads, we're absolutely going to watch this. This is Loads' thought on the state of Black Desert PvP. And again, there is no one better to speak about this. Okay.
I kind of want to just discuss things. A lot of this is going to be my opinions. Whether or not people really agree or not, it's up to you. It's going to be a pretty low effort video, so don't expect anything as far as the meta, the game modes. I'll try to discuss as much as I can, but like I said, it's going to be pretty low effort, so just going to bear with me. So for those that don't know about me,
we know about it now.
There's really not much to say about class balance. Either it's going to be there, your class is going to be good, you're going to love it, or your class is going to suck and you're going to hate it. It's really heavily opinionated, and it's kind of hard to give a true standing on it because it'll never be balanced.
This is exactly how I feel about class balance too. What do I say every time a balance patch comes out? Who even cares, bro? Like, as long as they're constantly trying to fix it and they're constantly adjusting things and they're buffing and they're nerfing things, I don't really have too much of a problem with class balance. People that say that class balance is the problem with PvP are most of the time.
Similar to gearing, I'll go over it a little bit. Guilds and alliances, the meta, I'll go over a lot of that later on in the video.
I do? Well, class balance can be a problem, 100%. I'm not saying it can't be. But what we're saying in this video is that class balance, we're talking about big picture problems, right? Things that, if this is the full picture of BDO, right? Long-term and short-term, we're talking about problems that encompass the vast majority of this line, right? So like all of this space right here. Balancing issues are literally such a short-term thing, right? Because they're constantly doing balance updates and they're changing classes, right? So like being upset about balance is usually a very short-term thing. And they've shown us that they will change stuff, right? It took them a while to nerf Awakening Sage, for example, but they did nerf Awakening Sage. It took them a second to nerf Deadeye, but they did nerf Deadeye, right? It took them a second to buff Corsair, but they did buff Corsair. So Perlibus has shown us that they're at least willing to work with us on class balance a little bit, right? So class balance is usually not what people talk about when educated people talk about the state of PvP and BDO. It's usually just not worth your breath to even bother mentioning, because yeah, it's always going to be up, it's going to be down, it's going to be all over the place. There's usually a super OP class and there's super underpowered classes, right? And Perlibus is doing, like, as long as they keep constantly changing stuff, they should be mixing it up enough that, you know, although not everyone's going to be happy, it's not really worth wasting your breath on, because the reality of the situation is that class balance has very little to do with the state of PvP in Black Desert.
I kind of have a little bit of a script, so if it sounds like I'm reading from a script, kind of am, but not really. So a lot of it will definitely be guided on.
All right, we're gonna speed it up to 1.5 and see if this playback speed. We're gonna go 1.5.
If that makes sense. So I'm gonna start with construction, and I really want to start really going by the negatives. So currently our Node War system is construction and occupation. Right now we have the ability to change Node Wars based on whoever owns Medaya. And on NA, we're heavily focused on construction. Other regions might do occupation, they might do construction. But on
the only reason, so I do know a little bit about this. EU does do the occupation war. To be clear, guys, construction war is old Node War. And occupation is new Node War. So NA does this one, and EU wants to do this one, but feels like they can't because it's super buggy and shitty, and also like not long enough, so they do this one. EU does not do this one because they think it is good. They do this one because they feel like they have to, because they don't have enough time to do this one, and it's buggy and it's shit. Like the Ford Health and a conglomeration of issues.
Today we primarily deal with construction. So I'm going to be talking about construction, some of the negatives here. Really the biggest one that I can think of is 1 hour wars. So I don't have the exact time frame, but somewhere around 2024 we changed back to construction from purely occupation, but we didn't get back the original construction time, which was 2 hour node wars.
Correct.
Really, their excuse for giving us 1 hour wars was that there's a lot of fatigue, but most of the wars still ended under an hour for the most part. Most of the fights that went over that hour mark, really the reason they went over the hour mark was because for the most part, the fights are very close, which means that they're fun in essence. Currently with the...
How about that? It's literally, how many of you have heard me say that exact thing? Like 100 times. I've said literally that exact train of logic, like literally 100 times.
1 hour
Not
node
me.
war.
Fuck you, Sung. You're stupid at.
You're really put on rails as far as how much time you have to win. And it kind of turns into around the 30-40 minute mark. Either you know you're going to win.
No, I haven't said it today because I'm allowing him. I'm trying to let him give his thoughts before I give my thoughts. It's something I'm trying to train myself to do. I'm trying not to give like my thoughts before they've given their thoughts. I'm trying. So for those of you that have not heard this explanation before, or are just flat out trolling me in the chat, I've said this probably about 100 times. So the reason people want 2 hour node wars. Okay. Node wars used to be 2 hours long. Okay. Now they're only 1 hour long. And what the developers think is that, as he just said, they think that by shortening Node War to 1 hour, they have basically decreased the amount of fatigue that PvPers feel while doing Node Wars. Okay, and what they've really done is that the vast majority of Node Wars do end before the 1 hour mark. The vast majority of them end before the 1 hour mark. The only Node Wars that ever traditionally went over the 1 hour mark are the really fun ones, the ones that were actually close and required like strategy and were fun and people were having a great time. Those were the ones that went to the 2 hour marker, where you actually had fighting going on and it was close and your base and everything really mattered.
Drow Ken Hunter just resubscribed for 26 months.
And so
26 months and many more coming.
And so when they decreased this to 1 hour, all they did was they sucked the fun out of Node Wars. So now you're stuck with all of the Node Wars that last 1 hour or less, which is the shitty Node Wars, right? And the good Node Wars, the ones that went from 1 to 2 hours, that were not fatigue, they were just fun, those aren't allowed to happen anymore. And so, like, that's what he's trying to explain to you here, is that, yes, it might sound like, oh, to somebody that is uneducated or hasn't led a PvP guild or hasn't shot called or hasn't done any of this stuff, I could see how you could understand the devs' take on this, where they're like, oh yeah, we want to prevent fatigue, we're going to cut Node Wars in half, right? But to anyone that actually does understand the systems of the game and actually has participated in the systems of the game for thousands of hours, like Loads has, all they essentially did was they sucked a lot of the fun Node Wars out of Node Wars, the competitiveness. They took the competitiveness out of it. They took the fun out of it, right? Because anytime you actually have a close Node War, it just ends immediately. And that's really, really frustrating.
Or guilds kind of realize it.
Have I explained this well enough for you guys to understand now?
Hey, we're not going to win, so kind of turns into a bit of a clown show. So I think 1 hour wars is probably one of the worst moves that I would say BDO has made, strictly because there's always a hard time limit. Yep. But with the way that structures work, and construction specifically, flags only come up every 10 minutes. So for
I was about to say. Yep, I was about to say. So yep. Okay, I'll just let him explain it.
Real Node War, you really only have 4 usable flags to make something happen, and
that's not enough.
It doesn't really give you too much time to think of any strategy or really much to kind of work from within an hour.
Okay, so I'm going to expand on this a little bit. So for those of you that don't know what a flag is, okay, so you have the enemy fort, okay? So you have the enemy fort, then you have your fort, okay? So there's a run distance between your fort and the enemy fort. The time it takes to reach the enemy fort, it's a big deal. It usually takes 1 or 2 minutes to horse across a Node War zone, group up, and actively push an enemy fort, okay? So in order to prevent this, like, you lose a lot of tempo doing this. You lose a lot of aggression doing this. The enemy gets time to rebuild. They get their defenses off, stuff like this. To prevent this from happening, we have something in Node War called the Indomitable Flag, the flag, okay? And these come up every 10 minutes. You can pull a flag out, and you can place it down anywhere in the Node War zone, really close to your enemy fort, and this allows you to push consistently on an enemy fort and apply pressure. Okay. What Loads is saying here is that you only get 4 of these flags per Node War, and when you place one, if the enemy pushes it and kills it, and it does not have a lot of HP, if the enemy pushes it and kills it for any reason, it dies, and then you have to place a new flag. Everybody has to spawn at fort again, and you have to run all the way back to the enemy fort from your base while the new flag gets planted. And hopefully, if the new flag gets down and all goes well, you can barely get there. You're basically diving onto the enemy fort to try to stop rebuilds, because rebuilds come up very quickly. Otherwise, the entire fight resets. If you don't get back to the enemy fort fast enough after your flag wipes, the whole fight resets. They get all the rebuilds off, and we go back to square one. We start over again, right? And this is a big reason why, again, 2-hour Node Wars are required. 1-hour Node Wars, you just don't have enough time to kill an enemy fort unless it's a bulldoze. If it's a stomp, you place one flag, you run down the enemy fort, your flag never dies. Okay, well that's not a fun Node War anyway. But in the fun Node Wars, the enemy team can actually, like, kill your flag a couple times and, like, negotiate and have people screen and do all this crazy strategy stuff, right? And so what he's saying is you only get 4 flags in a Node War, and there's just not enough. That's just not enough to make anything happen. Okay?
Hour time frame. And I know it might seem like a lot, an hour, but once you get into these wars and you realize...
Pre-watch. I have not pre-watched it, but again, I know Loads well enough to know that he is going to try to explain this, at least on some level. He's dumbed it down enough to anyone that's done Node Wars should be able to understand what he's saying. I'm trying to dumb it down so much that the new players in my chat and my community can understand why the PvP scene is upset.
A lot of time is downtime due to the fact that there's a lot of traveling, regrouping. It's not really like pure action for an hour, which kind of leads into another point as far as what I would say is easily the most notorious meta as far as Node Wars. Might be called something different in a region. Some people call it zombieing, ratting, termite, backdooring, whatever it might be. Essentially, it boils down to an enemy guild is jumping into your fort, doing damage to structures, dying, respawning, and doing it again without no intention of actually fighting player versus player. Basically.
Yes. Okay. So remember the diagram that we just set up. What people are doing, because there's not enough time in a Node War to actually win the Node War, okay, like normal, right, and actually fight your opponent like it used to be. Guilds are running out of time, so the guilds will lose their flag, or even with their flag, they will basically just put on a full DP set, or even if it's encamped, they will literally just dive into your fort. They will not attempt to fight the enemy guild. They will not attempt to get kills. They will dive into the fort and just use a bunch of skills to try to get fort damage on the structures and die, and then they will respawn and they will do it again. And they are able to do this because respawn timers in Node Wars, for some reason, are always I think it's 7 seconds. Now, it's always exactly 7 seconds. For Siege, it's a little different, but yeah, they've been 7 seconds in Siege for a while. But in Node Wars now, your spawn timers are basically always 7 seconds. So if you're spawning from a flag and just, that's why I said zombieing. I think that's a good term for it. So that's what we're going to use. You're literally just running at the enemy fort. You're not trying to get kills. You're not trying to fight the opponent. You're just running into the enemy fort and trying to die on repeat. You can understand how this is not fun.
Player versus structures.
So I'm going to let him say this one more time now that you guys understand exactly what's happening here.
Ratting, termite, backdooring, whatever it might be. Essentially, it boils down to an enemy guild is jumping into your fort, doing damage to structures, dying, respawning, and doing it again without no intention of actually fighting player versus players, basically player versus structures. And a lot of that has to do with, in my opinion, structures are way too weak.
By the way, that right there, what he just explained, that is a large reason why Europe, the European region, they do the other form of Node Wars, not because they find it fun, but they do the newer Node Wars system because they feel like they have to avoid like the zombieing that Loads just explained right there. Also the other problems.
Especially so in capped wars, but I'll get onto caps and all that later, but structures are way too weak for their actual structures as far as soft structures, recovs, things of that nature. And it's very susceptible to dying. The problem is we only have an hour. So at some point in order to win, a lot of guilds rely on zombieing, ratting, termiting, backdooring, whatever you might say. It ends up being a necessity. At some point you have to hit structures. You can't just fight outside of a base if you want to win a war. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that defense is really strong. Defense is probably the strongest it's ever been right now because
respawn timers.
You can have elephants in the base. Respawns are very low, 7 seconds, pretty much the entire war. You still have SOB, you still have the respawn, and though they've been nerfed over time, they're still there, they're still available.
SOB is Spirit of Battle. It is a guild skill. How do I get out of this? Okay. SOB is Spirit of Battle. It is supposed to be used defensively in a Node War. This is what he's talking about. Okay, it basically makes your guild members invulnerable for 30 seconds. It gives you 30 seconds of super armor and then gives you a bunch of health regen and a bunch of other stats that basically make you unkillable for 30 seconds. You're basically Cho Nation for 30 seconds, okay? You can also have Breath of Life, which instantly revives all your guild members as well. So you can run out, die instantly, and then instantly respawn as well. That's a 1 hour cooldown. So as long as the guild is defending even remotely well, they can basically just pop this every 15 minutes and make themselves invulnerable and get a free flag. They can kill a flag for free with Spirit of Battle. They can just dive onto the flag and kill it, okay? Alternatively, they can just immediately respawn. Boom. They all wipe, no problem. Stand right back up again, but that's only once a Node War. This is once an hour, okay? So this is, again, another factor that contributes to defense being very strong. That and respawn timers being 7 seconds, rebuilds happening really fast, and like you said, the elephant is a very important tool in a Node War because elephants are really powerful in Node War and Siege. I know it doesn't necessarily sound that much that way, but it CCs everybody. It does a tremendous amount of damage and can be used in it's very volatile. It can be used in a number of different ways to help defend the base, actively attack a base, defend a flag, etc. Essentially, if you're standing an elephant in base, you can just 4-chop the elephant on top of your 2 flame towers and your Hawacha and your other soft structures, and you essentially have a base that is almost impervious to offensive pressure.
And really, flags on offense die very easily. On capped, a small 5 to 10 men can kill a flag in 30, 40 seconds.
Yep. I started reviewing Node Wars in my free time. People will send me VODs and stuff of Node Wars that happen. The flags die to like 5 people in like 15 seconds. It's absolutely insane. Versatile, not volatile. Yeah, my bad. I meant to say versatile. The like flags in Node War die to like 5 people. So essentially what happens is if you push an enemy fort, and again, we're going to use pictures. Enemy fort. We'll make it a different color. Okay. Your flag. Okay. If you push an enemy fort from your flag and the enemy sends their flank team okay, of like 5 people, okay, off to the side here. They wait for you to push, and then they hit your flag. Your flag will be dead before you can respawn. Okay, so like if they just have a flank squad, literally just hit your flag consistently of 5 or 10 people, and then they just lightly defend their base like this, your flag just dies, and then you lose all pressure and all progress on the fort.
And the later in the war you start getting default respawns 20 seconds. If you take a bad wipe, your flag's dead. And let's say you're winning and you have some structures dead. Next thing you know, they drop a rebuild. You have a minute and a half to get back from your fort to their base to kill the rebuilds. Yep. And you have to consistently keep that pace. So with the way defense is designed right now, it's heavily incentivized to just play defense and to not move, because a lot of the offensive tools like flags are a lot weaker now due to, honestly, many things. Gear, power creep, really just a lot of different mechanics that have been added. And it's not really one necessarily easy solution to kind of combat this meta, as I think it'll always be strong. It's been strong since forever, as long as I know. And really there's no way to combat it. But I would say the biggest, and probably something that people don't realize, is that there's not a lot of macro or strategy that's involved in Node Wars nowadays compared to before. And a lot of it comes down to 2 things, in my opinion, which is what makes defense so strong. Is,
by the way, what he just said, the no strategy involved in Node Wars anymore, that's what killed Node Wars for me. That's why I stopped doing Node Wars. Because as a shot caller, the strategy was what it was all about, and there's no more strategy anymore. It's just zombie into the enemy base and die. Anyway.
One, we have the weakest cannons have ever been since I've really been playing the game. They die very easy. They're a 5-minute cook time. The structures that they come out of are very easy to kill.
The ballista, though, the ballista,
and the amount of damage that they do to flame towers and Hwachas in the fort has been nerfed, I would say, easily 5 or 6 times within the past 2 years, 3 years alone. So it's kind of at a point where,
useless.
Honestly, cannons are basically there to stop taps rather than actually kill structures, because if you really want to kill an FT or a Hwacha, you're better off throwing bodies on it instead of, using a cannon and trying to.
Correct. Okay, so again, we're going to use a picture. Okay. Honestly, I should just keep this on the screen. What he's explaining. All right. So, we talked about the pushing from the flag, right? Because it lowers the run distance to the enemy fort. When your flag dies, what Loads is saying is that it used to be that cannon team would help apply pressure to the fort as offense pushed from the flag. The cannon team would help knock down structures while the offensive ball pushed pressure on the base. Okay. So like you would be pushing and fighting the players, and the cannon team would be doing the heavy lifting of just destroying structures and working down the base steadily over time. What he's saying now is that the cannons actually don't do anything like damage-wise. All the cannon team can really be used for is to stop, prevent taps or rebuilds, right? Because it takes about, 15 or 30 seconds to put down a rebuild, and your character is vulnerable when you do this. You have to crouch down on the ground, and your character is vulnerable. A cannon, when it hits you, CCs you, it knocks you over. So what the cannon team's job the cannon team's job nowadays is when the flag dies, okay, and the flag is wiped away, and you have to horseback from base, all the cannon team is really trying to do is no damage to the enemy fort. They're just trying to prevent them from putting down rebuilds until you can get your flag back up again. That's all he's trying to say.
Defend a cannon and shoot. And this is the same across the board for all modes, and I'll mention it later on as well. Another downside, really, to construction.
Just play occupation. Where? Yeah, just play occupation, LOL. Well, this is what EU does. Because the developers have made our old Node War system so unplayable that it's just not fun. This is why EU plays occupation. EU does not find occupation war fun at all. They're not picking occupation war because it is fun. They're picking occupation war because of the reasons that Loads is trying to explain here. It's just such a miserable experience. And
this kind of plays part as just guilds as a whole, is that construction PvP relies heavily on individuals, leadership within guilds, to make it work, really. I know this topic has probably been beaten to death by people across the board, whether it comes to guild alliance size, guild sizes, alliances, and people really believe that killing guilds, and I'll go over this in more detail later, but there's a lot of pressure put on leadership in construction wars, because at the end of the day, you need a shot caller, you need a defense team, you need cannoneers, assuming they're useful.
Flex team.
You need a flex lead.
Yep.
And in a lot of these team fights, you need a cross-commer. You need someone knowledgeable to build. So you need people to really do a lot of back end work in construction, and
Correct.
it is kind of like a job for some, and a lot of people don't really see the back end, but it's there, and it is a lot of work.
It's a job.
Um,
Politics, dude.
kind of beyond. Besides that point, something else that I believe makes construction currently pretty bad is the border. So we've always had node war borders, which previously we had a little button on the top right of your screen where you could press, and it would show like a red wall fully surrounding zones, and that would let you know, hey, you're in the zone, hey, you're not in the zone. Previously, like the downside to dying out of zone was you couldn't spawn at your fort,
Right.
and if you were too far from your flag, you'd have to spawn at town or whatever. So that was kind of like the only downside.
Yep.
Now, ever since they kind of changed Node Wars the first time, they made it so that if you're out of zone and you're not within the same region, you get basically instantly killed. And that in itself isn't necessarily the worst part. You know, instant dying definitely sucks.
It's a 60-second respawn.
You get max timer,
too, I think.
which also sucks. But the biggest part is we don't have the button anymore. So without the button...
Wait, there's no button for the boundary of Node Wars anymore? They got rid of the button? Are you kidding me? How do you tell where the boundary is? Wait. So you can't. So you have no way of knowing where the edge of the Node War zone is. That's crazy. That is wild. Are you kidding me? What? Dude, how do you even tell where the Node War boundary is? I know this seems like, oh, how could you not know where the Node War boundary is? But anyone that's done Node Wars knows that there's a lot of play like right on the edge of the boundary. A lot of forts are placed right on the edge of the boundary to try to bait people into dying outside of the zone.
You really don't know when you're stepping in and out of the zone. And a lot of the current construction meta bases...
Although you had to be careful about it. So it used to be, we've had a lot of problems with Node War boundaries in the past. This is definitely the bit. I've never seen anything like this. Is stupid. To remove the button is stupid. That being, because you can't tell where the edge of the Node War zone is. That's obnoxious. That being said, for those of you that don't know, it used to be that when you stepped out of the Node War zone, all of your normal gear would apply. So even in a cap setting, what we would have our really high-end guilds do, like Cho Nation and them, they would place right on the edge of the Node War zone. If you ever push their base, they'd send like 4 people back to base and one-shot you with like 800 gear score because you were all capped at like 600. It was fucking cooked.
Are built within 10 to 20 meters of the out of zone spot because the way the node areas are cut. And because that's kind of how the bases are, and we have a really bad map layout. I don't know who's making the map designs or who's cutting the nodes the way they are. They obviously don't PvP and don't look at the zones with a good lens, because some node zones basically have a third of their area within towns, which means you can't build. One big example is if you look at Karudo, one of the bases on the very southeast is a very powerful base. It's on top of a mountain with out of zones, 3 out of zone borders basically surrounding the fort, and it's on top of a mountain. So you get instant killed as someone pushing that base if you step too far to the east, too far to the north, too far to the south. And then the west is a cliff face that falls straight down a hill. So bases like that make it basically...
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun to push. That sounds great. That sounds super fun. That sounds great. Really, really solid. The way they should draw Node War zones, like boundaries, is they need to fly someone to Pearl Abyss headquarters, like Loads, like any of the guild leads from EU or NA, from the top guilds. They just fly them out and they will draw the zone borders for you. Or you don't even have to fly them out. Just ask them for it and they'll draw it on the map for you. That's it. They'll do it for you. You need to let the players do that.
Here. The difference between EU and NA is that we will do absolutely everything to win. Speaking generally, problems that he is expressing in my opinion are ninja plan of PA to kill construction silently by changing structures that for people oriented around competitive fights. So like top alliances, occupation is the only way to have fights without body throwing base for 1 hour or being dodged in uncapped content, which is heavily cancerous due to DR meta.
He's right. I've been suspecting that that's what the is going on for a while. But I am hoping against hope that it's just the developers being hard-headed. So what he's saying here is that Pearl Abyss knows about these problems and they are very intentionally doing them so that people have to do the new Node War system so that they can pretend that they were right the whole time. Or so that they don't have to change it back. In my opinion, I think that if you did a poll and asked PvPers across the board if they want the old Node War system back in its entirety, that's 2-hour Node Wars, alliances where you want them, etc., back to where it was before, or you want the new system with no old system, they would take the old system and they wouldn't even think about it. They legitimately would not even think about it. It would just be like, it would be an overwhelming super majority of players would take the old system back with 2-hour node wars and fixed stuff, you know, like fixed structure health and fixed like length and zombieing not being flag HP being better. Like,
if you build there, you cannot lose. And I think it's terrible design. And really, they need to look at the maps. They need to look at bringing back the button. I don't know what the technology is and how we lost it, but we lost the button.
I don't know what the technology is on how we lost it. It's so true. I don't like, we had it before. Can we just have the button back
to show the borders, which would help?
I guarantee you what happened was they redrew the Node War scene. They redrew the borders for Node Wars, and then they didn't want to have to retool the button to like match the new Node War boundaries, so they just took it away. And they were hoping that no one would notice.
I'm assuming when they
again, it helps make the game unplayable for construction.
We cut all the regions. They had no clue how to fix the Node War zone, so they just got rid of the button so that they didn't have to worry about redoing that. I'm assuming that's what happened. But really, we need it back. We need the button back. They need to relook at the Node War zones and the way they cut them up, because I think they're terrible currently.
They've always been kind of bad.
The way we rotate our nodes, it's not really on a time base, so it's not every 3 months we're getting Valencia Medaya for uncapped, and 3 months after that, Valencia Medaya are capped or whatever. Like, that's not how it works. It's just kind of randomly, which kind of ruins the fun. You have to really fight on the same nodes over and over and over. So really having them split and move the regions would be nice, at least on a more of a schedule, so that we know every 3 months, hey, we're going to get Calpheon Medaya for capped.
That would be good. Yep, we've been asking for that for a while. Agree.
Whatever, right? So that would be pretty nice. So those are kind of the negatives. There's a couple more things. I think one of the probably biggest things as far as that kind of feeds into the termite meta and a lot of this stuff is ball fighting doesn't really matter in Node Wars currently, outside of ego. So whenever you see guilds really just fighting in the open field, there's really not much going off of it, because at the end of the day, when you die in the Node War, most of the times you're back up in 7 seconds. So there's really not much to be gained to ball fighting outside of huge guild disparities where one guild's just way stronger and they kind of run them over. But when guilds are relatively close, getting a couple kills here and there doesn't really matter that much anymore. They're back up in 7 seconds and they're right back into the fight. Where before, when you died a lot, you had 30-second respawn sometimes 20 minutes into the war. And now 20 minutes into the war, assuming all of your recovs are up, well, you're back in 7 minutes, so you're good to go. So I think that's kind of led to more guilds being willing to just int termite, zombie, whatever you want to say, into forts, because they know 7 seconds, you're back up, who cares?
Yep.
And that's really just kind of the game's way of pushing, I guess, people being more active in the wars. Because I know previously, now you Siege as an example, even though we'll get there later, is in many years ago when you died in a Siege, you were dead for 120 seconds. So
that was way too long. I actually think that Siege being 6 or 7 second respawns is fine, because once the recovs start going down, because you have the ballista to put cannon pressure on the base. Now, in fairness, cannons should be buffed, but like the ballista puts a little bit more pressure on the base, and it's a little harder to get out of the base. So like the regroup is a little harder.
Didn't matter whether you died 1 minute in the war or 3 hours in the war. When you died, you were dead for easily 1 minute to 2 minutes. So every single life you did, you thought about like, wow, I don't want to die, But now it's like, just die, go again. So some of those are really the negatives for construction. I'm trying not to go too far in tangents here. Try to keep it, because I'm not editing this. I'm really lazy. I'll go over some of the cons to construct. Or I went over the cons. I'm going to go over some of the pros. Is at the end of the day, construction requires macro and strategy when it's working at its true form, and that's really what draws a lot of people to Node Wars. It's really a competitive, sort of ego-driven scene where you want to prove that you're a strong guild. At the end of the day, you want to prove you're better than another guild.
How many times have I said that? Again, they made this new Node War system for pussy, Care Bear losers that don't want to be competitive, and it doesn't matter when you lose. Everything's gonna be okay. There's no consequences, no big deal. Everyone just is gonna love each other, and we're gonna all live in bliss. Okay. PvP is for men. And I know that sounds sexist, but please bear in mind that most of the women that do PvP are also men, okay? Again, PvP is a men's thing in video games, okay? With some notable exceptions. the vast, overwhelming, vast majority of people that do PvP are men. If you take and if you take the entire community of the gaming community, I would say that at least 70% of the gaming community are men, right? 70% of the gaming community are men. And even if you say 30% are women, right? It's still a 70-30 split. That's an overwhelming majority. Well, PvP gets a little bit different, right? What are some of the games that women actually like to play? They like, why do women love to play BDO most of the time? They play it for RP, or they're trying to attract men, or they think the characters are cute, or they're playing it because their boyfriend is playing it, or whatever, okay? The reason men play BDO is a number of different reasons. But now ask, what cooking? That's crazy. Now ask yourself, why do people do PvP, right? Do you think that this is still a 70-30 split? No. The people that are attracted to PvP, because BDO is a very sandbox-oriented MMO, there's a lot of things that women can actually enjoy in BDO. And I'm not saying that they can't enjoy PvP, but I'm talking about the super majority of people here, okay? So we're talking about a general trend here. Surely people can understand that. When you talk about PvP, you're talking about the people who want to go head-to-head against another human being and say, I'm better than you. Okay? It is straight-up competition. That is men competing with each other to see who is the better man. You see this exercised in real life through any number of things. Men love competing with other men. That is why men's sports is much, much more competitive than female sports. You look at the NBA versus the WNBA. One's a joke, one's a sport. Okay, I love sports and I love jokes, so I love both of them. Hashtag Dwight. Now that being said, like when it comes to BDO, it is almost no different. No, there is almost no difference here. Most of the people that are doing PvP are extremely competitive men. That's why they're doing it. Okay. Now, there are exceptions. There are competitive women that do PvP as well, obviously, right? But we're not focused on that necessarily. Even the competitive women are going to want exactly what I'm about to explain to you, right? So like the vast super majority of players, right? This big space right here, okay? And maybe 5% of people excluded. The vast super majority of people that do Node Wars and Siege are doing it so that they can compete against other guilds and prove that their guild, that they are stronger than another player or another guild. Okay. It's the same thing in AOS. Why is AOS the most popular game mode in Black Desert Online for PvP right now? It's because it's extremely competitive, and it's one of the only competitive outlets that Black Desert Online has left in its current state. Okay, it's the only place where men can go and say, I am better than other people at this game. Okay, in Node Wars, there's no clear expression, like there's always some cope or there's some reason why you couldn't win or why the best guild couldn't win or whatever. But in AOS, there's no real excuse, right? If you're number one, you're number one. That's the way that it is. And that's the way that it used to be for Node Wars too. If you won in Node Wars, that was the way that it was, but it's just simply not the case anymore, especially with their new Node Wars system. It is not competitive. And so when you take a competitive game mode and you make it not competitive, a lot of the reason that people used to do it is gone now, and so a lot of people quit that game mode or they find it unfun now. And that's exactly what he's trying to say here. I heard that if you're a GM, you get mad femboys, so I made a guild. I don't know all about all that PvP shit, bro. Again, I'm not trying to be like... It's like, oh, it's super sexist what he's saying. No, it's just the truth. I'm not trying to insult women or say that women can't do Node Wars or women can't do Siege or women can't do PvP. That's not what I was saying at all. I was saying that the general trend is that they don't. Most women choose not to participate in those activities. And the ones that do are very competitive women. And they want exactly what the competitive men want. Okay? Like they want a competitive environment. All right. Like I've played with plenty of females in the competitive Node War and Siege scene in BDO, and they were extremely good at the game. That being said, there were very few of them. Very few of them. And the ones that were there wanted a competitive environment. And when you take away a competitive environment, you make it not only not fun for the guys, but you make it not fun for the girls too. Right? So
any real competitive Node War guilds, any real Node War guilds want to prove that they're better than the guild they're fighting. And when you win,
being used loosely here, right? I get into all that, like legit, like, and sincerely, if you found any of that offensive or sexist, I would encourage you to go watch another stream because you're and you don't belong here.
It's fun. when you lose, it could be fun, but what kind of kills a bit of the scene is that there's no competitive integrity anymore. There's a lack of ego, there's a lack of competition, and I think a lot of it comes down to not really node wars themselves, but kind of the game's state overall. One of the probably biggest flaws would be decks being gone, but that's a whole nother topic. But construction wars are fun. When they work, they're fun. You remember the wars, you remember the close wars, you remember the ones that you win, you remember the ones that you lost. You remember the long 2-hour wars, and you don't really remember the 10-minute ones, right?
Nope.
And it's one of the only forms of actual guild content in the game that, in my opinion, is fun.
Group play.
The game is very solo oriented. There's very little group content that's not weekly gated. And node wars are one of the few where it's, as long as your guild is dropping.
Man, he really hit all the buzzwords in that sentence right there. We want group content. We don't want weekly gated bullshit anymore. And PvP sucks right now. We got. That was the trifecta. That was triple bingo.
Something to do daily for the most part. So construction at its core, very ego, very competitive, requires thinking from your guild. It requires strategy. And it gives people a reason to be better, to push for something. That was kind of like always the goal for construction node wars was you wanted better players, you wanted more gear, you wanted to be better so that you'd win. Really, at the end of the day, that's what it is. And we've gone through many different node wars styles, types, whether it be the lattice system or the hex system, whatever it was, and full 100-man node wars with pure uncapped to mix between cap, T1s, whatever it might be. Those are gone, but we do have the new mode, occupation. Similar thing. I will say it's a lot different than construction.
What's going on here? There's probably some bug with Mystic that he doesn't want to actually show the development team so he can keep using it. And so he has like this random picture over the top of his skills so you can't see that there's some shit going on. There's no other reason for this sus-ass thing to be on the screen.
So kind of, I think one of the biggest things that separates occupation and construction is, personally for me, I think it's a for fun war style. So for non-competitive guilds, casual guilds, it's probably peak gameplay as far as just clicking a button, getting your guild into a war, and just boom, you're in there. There's not really much to think. You don't really need that much leadership. You don't really need that much back end. You just queue up and you're in.
I was kind of hoping that the new occupation war was going to be basically just the old node war system, but like it built the base for you and it automatically put people onto teams for you. That would have been great. Literally just do the old node war system, but put players on teams. So if 4 guilds sign up for a node war, you put guild 1 and guild number 4 on the same team, and then you put guilds 2 and 3 on the same team. And then you put them on different sides of the node, and you ally them, and the guilds fight each other. Then, and the base is built for you already anyway, right? And then, like, there's designated base locations where the forts, like, you know, spawn on the different sides of the nodes and stuff. I think that would have been fine, and people would have been fine with that. And it's still 2 hours, right? That would have been really simple. Instead they just decided that they wanted to go back to the drawing board. That would have solved a lot of the problems with the old system where you had to do a lot of politics, you had to build the base, and you had to set up fights, and you had to do all this stuff. Really annoying, right? That would have taken a lot of that out of there. It still would have been at least a little bit frustrating, but it would have been really easy for guilds to get into node wars, right? Now you have instead they developed an entirely new system, which has nothing to do with the old system, which doesn't prepare guilds at all for what so like they start in T1s and it's occupation and it's like a completely different system. Then they get to T2 plus and they're immediately fighting like Digital and and Pecco and all these other family and all these other guilds and on a completely new system, and they don't know anything about what any of these structures do or how to play the game or what they're supposed to do because they haven't been prepared at all. So like basically if you're playing against a guild or even a shot caller that has more experience or that has like the really old knowledge and understands the game, you have absolutely no hope of winning if you're a new guild or if you're a new leadership core. So like new guilds are not even a thing in BDO anymore. You have new guilds with old leadership cores, but as leadership cores quit the game, guilds just end up quitting. That's just the end of it. Every time a leadership core quits, you lose like 30 or 40 more players.
And it has its bonuses for that, you know. Even hardcore guilds, competitive guilds, if they have an off day or let's say they're missing a lot of their leadership, hey, they click the button, the guys are in
You can't get into this game without getting backshotted for months straight. Yeah, but it used to be that guilds could just start a node war guild, right? And the scene would help them. Like, I know the EU used to do this for new guilds too. Like, if a new guild reached out and was like, hey, how do we build the base on this particular node war zone? Or, hey, can we get into this fight here, right? This happened in NA a lot. It's like, hey, we're new. Can we get into this fight? Or are you guys going to be able to work us in? Are we strong enough? Guilds would be like, yeah, absolutely. We can work you in and try to figure out how you can be a meaningful part of this fight. Here's how you build the base. Here's where you're going to want to go. This is what the node war zone looks like, etc. Right? So, like, the scene would teach the new players coming in. Nowadays, that's not really a thing anymore because, I mean, shit, you're at least before you were teaching someone with like baseline knowledge. You're like, yeah, so you want to place your recovery centers around the southeast side. And these new guilds are like, what's the recovery center? Right? They don't have fun. The cannons, they were not taught cannons. They were not taught how to pressure a base. They were not like they were given a flag, but it's different timers, and they can build the structures wherever they want. Now they have to build the structures around the base, right? They're like, wait, why do the flame towers have to be right next to the fort, right? Like they have no idea how to protect their structures with the flame towers and with the Hawatches properly. They don't understand how to push a base properly. They don't understand how to coordinate a cannon team or a flex team or any of that stuff because none of those concepts are taught to you in the occupation war. None of that is used in an occupation war. You're all just free for alling for 30 minutes. Like
T1 occupation war, perfect, cool. You know, it is what it is. And it could be fun. The mode could be fun. Like I said, it's not necessarily a competitive ego thing, but a lot of the downsides really stem from the game splitting us at 5. So currently, if there are
also true
5 guilds that drop on, let's just say, Kama,
I gave this exact feedback. I guarantee you I gave this exact feedback when this node war system drops. Listen to what he's about to say. He's right, by the way.
5 guilds that drop on, let's just say, Kama. It'll split the guilds into 3 and 2. So there'll be 3 on Kama, 2 on Calpheon. So instead of being more of like a large-scale, really active fight, we get this weird, segmented kind of split fight, where in my opinion, I think the split should be around 10.
Yeah.
Once you hit that,
instead, bro. Okay, so guys, what happens when you queue up for a node war is if you queue up on Kama Sylvia, you have a chance of landing on Kama Sylvia or Calpheon, depending on how many guilds sign up. If 5 guilds sign up, it's going to split you to 2 regions, and so then you end up with a 1v1, which you end up with like digital versus like a T1 guild or some shit ass guild, right? And that they just get bulldozed, and then you end up with a 1v2, so you end up with a 3 fort on one and a 2 fort on the other, and that sucks. Instead, you could have just had a 5 fort clown fiesta, right? And that's also, and nobody likes a clown fiesta, but it's still better than having a 1v1 the best guild in the game.
10 mark, then split it into 5 and 5. 5 on Calpheon, 5 on Kama. And that kind of keeps the fight competitive, because what happens a lot of times in these splits is you'll get one really strong guild, one snipe, and then one like mid-tier guild, and that mid-tier guild just can't do anything to the strong guild. They just lose because the snipe isn't actually there. Or if you get 3 guilds that are very similar in strength, and they're all fighting over one fort, what happens is kind of a standoff where guilds put their FTs and watches relatively close to the fort, and then they slowly creep them up to the one fort, and then next thing you know, you have 3 guilds within 50 meters of this fort in a triangle, all basically slowly chipping the fort down, getting little kills here and there. You can't really dive because there's FTs and watches blasting you. And then fort gets down to 10%, all 3 guilds dive, and you know, a guild prays that they get it, and then they get it, and then
that sounds so terrible. That sounds like such a terrible fucking experience, bro.
The other 2 guilds kind of rinse repeat, where they start hitting the fort, the guild owns it, kind of gets blasted down a bit, or sits on their half of their part of the triangle, and you know, you keep repeating that over and over until the war randomly ends. Another downside of occupation, it just ends. Sometimes you're in a good fight, you know, a couple guilds, and you're on the question mark fort, you're about to do a push, and you're 22 minutes in, fight just ends, boom, there you go. And everybody just, okay, occupation's done, and you just kind of log out for the day. So the RNG simulator and the standoff part, probably the 2 actual worst parts of occupation. Splitting the region at 5 is just doesn't make sense, and I think if they upped it to 10, it'd be way better. I don't think there's really
it's still gonna be shit though. You're not fixing the core problem.
Solution to the standoff FT watch a simulator. It's kind of just part of the way the game mode is built around, and I don't think it'd be necessarily bad, assuming there was more than 3 guilds. It's kind of like a problem of 3 guilds, 2 guilds. When there's a lot of guilds, like what happens on T1s where there's like 20 guilds in a region, that's less of a problem because of the amount of guilds. But it's when you do the T2s, the uncapped, where you get a smaller amount of guilds, where you still kind of run into the flaws of occupation. But like I said, it's definitely an RBF style game mode. It's definitely good for fun, casual guilds, which I think is a plus. You know, it's very non-competitive for fun, casual, getting people into kind of PvP, but you don't really learn the node war system at all. And I think the pluses of it, outside of that, obviously less leadership because it's for fun. It's basically an RBF. And the fights kind of change daily because, you don't really have to defend a fort per se. You can kind of just leave the fort, really. If you don't want to defend a fort, you don't have to. You just leave a guild, you leave a fort and just go fight elsewhere. So sometimes you just end up fighting in the middle of nowhere on a flag, which could be fun. But, that's really all I'll say about Occupation. I don't think it's a bad mode. I think it's been poorly kept, and they really should think about going.
It's a bad mode. He's trying to be nice. It's a bad mode. He literally just spent 25 minutes talking about how it's a bad mode and then said, oh, I don't really think it's a bad mode.
Going back in and changing some of these things, maybe make it so you can only have one FT if you don't own a fort, or, make a radius around the flags where you can only place one FT, no Hwacha, or two FTs, no Hwacha around the flag. That way it gets rid of this like standoff flag gameplay. Make it so you can only put Hwachas around the fort, or I don't know. There's definitely something that can be done to it. The problem is we haven't had any changes to Occupation at all. So that's kind of why the game mode seems kind of bad. It's just because
yeah, don't worry, guys. They're diligently watching Node Wars.
Hasn't had any maintenance.
Remember, that's what they said in patch notes like 8 times.
Getting to Siege. There's really a lot of negatives to Siege. I'm going to be honest with you. For one, Siege is an absolute laggy mess. Even on some regions, 1v1s, you lag. 2v2s, you lag. 3v3s, you lag. Anything above 3v...
It was funny when I went to Throne and Liberty and people were like, I'm lagging! I'm like, this is not lagging. This is smooth gameplay. There's thousands of people on the screen. The game's running like smooth as shit. And like, maybe it stutters a little bit. You know nothing, Jon Snow.
3
BDO lags.
For being like the peak content and you really want to get a ton of guilds, super large scale, massive PvP, you get above 3v3s and...
cooked.
Oh my god, it just doesn't work. Game does not work. Please try again. You're stuck trying to get on your horse. Your weapons get put away. Input delay. Anybody who's been to one of these laggy sieges knows exactly what I'm talking about. They're terrible. They're not fun. Another thing about Siege, all of your knowledge in Siege doesn't really correlate that well to Node War knowledge, especially Occupation. There's nothing in Occupation that tells you how to Siege. Even for Node Wars, there's a good
amount of stuff
that you do learn, but there's a lot of things in Sieges that if you haven't done Siege before, there's nothing that's going to teach you how to do it besides just going into the blender and just hoping to learn.
Or having a shot caller that knows what the fuck they're doing.
Balanos is different from the Calpheon, and the Calpheon is different from Valencia, and each region kind of has its own bases, way you play. There's just a lot of things that you kind of have to learn. Similar to Construction Node War, respawn timers are insanely powerful. You basically keep 7-second respawns for 4 hours if need be, and it makes defense incredibly strong, and the only way to break it are ballistas. So that puts a lot of pressure on ballistas where previously it was cannons, but now cannons are useless. Cannons, they don't kill FTs, they don't kill Hwachas. They stop tapping, I guess. So, but really, like, one guy inting into the fort can do the same thing.
Yeah, that would be AIDS. If cannons can't, and to be clear, cannons used to take forever to kill recovery centers, but they would kill them. Now they're just not going to kill anything.
Base will die before your FTs and Hwachas die, which I think is kind of going to show just how bad of a state cannons really are in. And a lot of that emphasis is put back on ballistas, which are a 15-minute timers, so you only get a limited amount of them. Another problem with Siege, at least for high-end fights, and it's been like this for a while, similar to Construction again, jumping into forts and just dying is very powerful. For some reason, we have, and I'll get to...
I call it suiciding. When you just peggy over the walls. Do you guys see these giant siege walls here? Every fort in Siege has these giant walls like this. And you can just peggy jump over the top of the walls with your free tier 10 or tier 9 horse or whatever and just basically dismount and do as much damage as you can before dying. It's like the zombieing he was talking about before.
Castle in a moment.
I hate it. It makes Siege so unfun for both sides. It's so annoying.
Have ways to mitigate horsing. And that's in Castle Siege, we have horse orbs.
True.
For the castle owner, which basically create this big force field around the castle where no one besides the castle owner can use their horses peggy jump, double jump, basically the ability to bypass the gates. That's in the castle, and I don't understand why we don't have that for our own ability to build, both in Construction and in Siege. I think they should allow that orb to be built as like a buildable structure within Siege bases, because I think currently horsing into forts is way too strong, just overall. And kind of something I want to touch on is in a little bit as far as meta is horses in general, but horsing into forts are way too strong, and kind of that orb is used to negate it for the castle, but castle's outdated. Castle is essentially too strong now. Gates don't matter. Before, when you killed gates, you got increased time and you got the ability to spawn at the gate. Yep. You no longer can spawn at the gate, and it doesn't increase time. All it does is just give you the ability to walk in. and the ability to kill the orbs. The problem with the orbs.
The problem with Castle Siege is that in concept, on paper, it sounds amazing, but the reality of Castle Siege is that the game can't handle that many people in one place. So what ends up happening is it's a laggy mess and nobody has any fun at all. Either there's too many people zerging the castle and like the people defending the castle can't even tell what's going on their screen, or there's not enough people pushing the castle. There's only 1 or 2 guilds pushing the castle. Then they just sit there and get farmed for 2 hours and die. And they have zero hope of actually taking the castle from the castle owners. Because if it's not lagging at all, you absolutely cannot stop the castle owners. There's no stopping them. You legitimately cannot take the castle from them if the guilds are even remotely close in strength.
Is that orbs are too tanky. The orbs are probably twice as strong as a gate, maybe 3 times as strong as a gate, and you have to kill 6 of them. So you have to kill 2 when you kill the first gate, 2 when you kill the second gate, and then 2 at the very back of this. Basically every fort has 2. And a lot of these orbs, once you kill the first and second gate, the final orbs they're basically in the base of the siege structures. So by the time you get to them, you might as well not even hit them because they're tankier than forts. So why would you ever go after them when you can just kill the fort instead? So they should really adjust. I mean, castle PvP is terrible. No one really wants to do castle PvP, especially if you can't horse and you can't spawn at the gate. So they need to create either gate spawns, make it so that you only need to kill.
Yeah, I remember when Goldstein got really upset with me. Ultimately that's the beef that started between us back in the day, and why he made a bunch of videos about me is because I disagreed with him when I said that Castle Siege is not fun. The castle, like fighting in castle, is not a fun time at Siege. They should just remove castles from the game and then use it for some other purpose. I don't know, some other purpose, and then like the defending guild should just have like a super reinforced fort of some kind, just a normal fort, but the walls are like 2 or 3 times as tanky or something. I don't know. The flame towers are stronger, whatever. Regardless, like sieging a castle is not fun.
2 horse.
And other people were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you removed the castle from Castle Siege." Well, yeah, it's because it's unfun, like you just said.
Orbs or something to make castle not as powerful the way it is. Not even going to go over the dragon, which is the dumbest thing they ever added into the game. But the dragon, for people who've seen it, it's basically a flying FT that obliterates the field, and it's probably the most boring mechanic in the game. It's
so bullshit.
Old school Ellie's that just knocked you around, except for this one's in the sky and it can't be killed. And even if you could kill it, it can spawn in 10 seconds. So why would you ever kill it? And it's just there.
Its spawn time is 10 seconds? Okay, so you can never do anything. If they have a dragon, you legitimately cannot take the castle. It's not possible. Oh my god.
So, won't really go too much into that, but yeah, that's terrible. Fun parts of Siege. I mean, it's peak ego, peak competition.
Yeah.
Not really so much in the past 2 years for NA, but when there was drama for Siege, even if you weren't a part of the Siege guilds, you knew about it. And that's really at the core part of it, what drives PvP.
Yep.
And really what we haven't had is ego. There's no competition. There's no shit talk.
Men being men. If you're not calling me a homophobic slur after a Siege fight, why are we even here? Like, why are we even doing this? Like, straight up, man. Like, there's just no competition at all.
Really, a lot of that has died, which has kind of killed both Siege, Open World, and Node Wars. There's no stake in the game. There's no stakes in the game. It's like a watered-down, kid-friendly PvP session. A lot of that comes down to politics, sure, but the game doesn't help at all. Back in the day, you'd want to beat your most hated guild, and you'd beat them in a Node War, and you'd shit-talk them. Then you go to Open World, and you'd fight them, and you'd shit-talk them. Then you go to Siege, and you beat them, and you shit-talk them. We don't have that anymore. And that's really what Siege was just peak ego, peak competition. Yep. The fights weren't always there weekly, but when you did get them, you remembered them because most of the time they were ego or something.
Yeah, cinema. Yeah, absolutely.
Siege has the most amount of moving pieces to it.
Yep.
Has the most amount of really strategy.
Yep.
There's a lot of knowledge in Siege. There's a lot that you really have to do to win very close fights. You don't always see them, but there's a lot of thinking really in Siege in comparison to Node Wars. And when it works, it's the best content in the game, really. Siege is probably the funnest content in the game.
Yes.
The problem is
when Siege works, it's the best content in the entire game. He's absolutely right. It is the most fun I have ever had in Black Desert has been Sieges. When it's not working, it is terrible and you hate it and it's the worst shit ever. But when it works, oh my god, it's the most memorable experience you'll have in gaming.
You get a good Siege 1 out of every 50. And when you're talking weekly, that means you maybe get one really good Siege a year. And I think a lot of that comes down to really there's no competition, there's no ego, it's too friendly. And you can't even really blame the community because how do you build ego? How do you build competition when you don't interact really with players. You don't interact with other guilds. You can't deck them. You can't shit talk them. You'll get reported. You know, you can't really do much. Outside of super old, long-standing drama, really, there's really not much going on. You know, and a lot of that comes down to older players kind of keeping that drama going, which is good and bad, but you know, that's really what keeps that going. But yeah, Siege, it could be fun when it works. It's fun. It's large scale PvP. You know, it's back and forth. Ton of people. You know, people get to get a lot of kills and, you know, have fun and shot callers and leadership, and they get to have that, you know, driven kind of PvP where it's, you know, you're leading your guys around and you're trying to get some sort of win some way somehow, and you know, you're really thinking. It requires a lot of moving pieces, and that's what makes Siege fun, to be honest. A lot of thinking, a lot of thought involved, a lot of strategy, a lot of for the real good sieges, there's a lot of prep work to it and making sure your guys know what you're doing, what's going on, you know. And yeah, I mean, that's really all I gotta say about it. I'll kind of throw in the incentives of PvP, the money, the silver, or whatever. Like, PvP in general right now, this is probably the best it's ever been as far as rewards across the board. Construction, occupation, sieges. Guys, you're getting paid. Everybody knows you're getting the bag.
Yep. And whose fault is that? Right? Hey guys, we have crazy good rewards. Awesome. Who was it, one more time, that said that we should have good rewards for PvP and that good rewards would make PvP great again? Because I could have sworn that I remember somebody saying that was at the heart of why PvP just wasn't working. It's Choi something. I don't know. It's a content creator. Oh god. Oh, it's because we have our developers. We have our developers listening to content creators that don't know how to lead guilds, right? That have never led guilds, so that they don't understand. Even though they do the PvP systems every day, they don't understand the PvP systems at the level that someone like Loads understands them. They don't understand the PvP systems as well as someone like I would understand them. Can they beat us in a 1v1? 100%, no question. And Loads is a better gamer than I am. But that doesn't mean they understand the game, right? That doesn't mean they understand why people come out to PvP. That doesn't mean they understand why people want to get involved in PvP in the first place. And it is not rewards. It is not rewards. No new player gets involved, like legitimately gets involved in the Node War scene because they want to get paid silver, okay? At the heart of it, the real reason people get involved in a Node War scene is they want to be competitive. They want to be in a community that is competitive. They want to play with people, right? That are trying to competitively be like they want to meet people, or they want to compete with people, or they want to be in a community with people that are all trying to work toward a common goal for something, right? That's why people want to get involved in Node Wars, right? It was never for the money. And anyone with a brainstem could have figured this out if you had thought about it for, 5 seconds. All I remember from then is nothing but bangers. True, that person was also a clown when they said that. Yeah, there were again, this is why people in this community, that people come to me for shit, for a lot of shit, is because the other content creators are just shills sometimes when it comes to trying to call out Perlibus for shit behavior. Yeah, nothing but bangers, bro. This is ridiculous. Now, that being said, think about it for a moment. The best PvP we ever had in BDO, you look 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, okay? When BDO was like the PvP was really, really fun, right? You would go to Node Wars, you would go to Siege, and you would go to GVGs, and you would lose silver. But why are those the memories that you're remembering? When you think back to your best fights in the game, your best memories of your fondest memories of PvP, did the silver matter to you? Honestly, did the silver matter? No, the silver, none of it mattered. In fact, if you weren't losing billions of silver every siege for popping perfumes and whale tendies and droughts and elixir rotations, you were griefing, right? You were griefing yourself. Most times you ended up leaving siege negative 5 billion, but you know what? You won, so that other guild, okay? It never mattered. This whole, oh, well, if we give new players incentive and we give them like a bunch of rewards for PvP, then they will come PvP. This idea is created by somebody that does not understand the BDO community or the PvP community at a level beyond kindergarten. Like at a surface level, they've looked at the problem and they've assessed it like, okay, why aren't players doing PvP? Well, we lose money every time we PvP. Surely silver rewards, like we give people catch-up mechanics. If we give them like catch-up mechanics for PvP too, surely that will get them to come do node wars and stuff. No. You have to think about it. And to be clear, the only people that are really fit to think about this on like a constructive level are the guild leads. Anyone that's really led a guild would understand this at a very basic level. No one gives a shit about the silver. When it comes to Siege, you're like, yeah, we're getting that bag, whatever, we're fighting for that money, we want that money. But the reality of the situation is you really just want to win, right? To exercise the fact that you're better than the other guilds, right? And any guild lead would have been able to tell you that. But as Loads is explaining here, yeah, our rewards for PvP have never been higher. But the participation in PvP has really never been lower. We're at an all-time low. And that's, again, because the developers were given feedback, and they were given feedback by people that don't understand or did not thoroughly understand what the problem was in the first place, or what would actually bring players to the game. And so the developers over the last year and a half have been steadily buffing rewards. I mean, shit, guys, 2 years ago, we had no rewards in PvP. Like I said, we lost money doing Node Wars, Siege, and GVGs all the time. Now you're paid more than ever. You get the bag, you get buffs, you get silver, you get crystals, you get all kinds of shit. You get medals, all kinds of crap for winning in PvP. Even the hardcore servers had the best rewards for PvP we'd ever seen. Still not used. Still tanked. Doesn't matter.
When you win. When you lose, you're still getting a little bag, but everybody knows you're getting a bag. Let's be real. But despite that, it doesn't necessarily mean people are having fun with it, even though we have the incentives. But I mean, you can't complain about it. The incentives there. There's a lot of you guys that go bag mode.
There's nothing wrong with having incentives in PvP. I think it's great that we have the best rewards for PvP we've ever had. That's not going to get players to do PvP, though. That's not what gets players to do PvP. It would have been great to have those incentives 2 or 3 years ago when we actually had a PvP scene. That would have just made the PvP scene even better. All rewards can do is catalyze good content. It cannot create good content. As I've said before, first content must be good. Then you can add rewards to it and make it better. If you try to add good rewards to bad content, people will do it at first for maybe the good rewards, but they will stop doing it relatively quickly because they will make it will feel like a chore to them, right? I'm sure a lot of you have examples like this in games that you've played where like the rewards were really good for something and you thought 10, 15 minutes, this is super worth it. But you fast forward a month or whatever, a few weeks, and then suddenly you're like, it's just not worth doing, right? And then you just stop doing that particular thing because it felt like a chore. That's the problem with adding really good rewards to bad content and expecting players to engage with it. It simply does not encourage engagement.
Of it. So, Siege, obviously bag mode. And I talked about it a bit, but guild decks. This is probably the most controversial. It depends on each individual, but really at the end of the day, removing guild decks has kind of killed a lot of what made BDO. They tried to implement Arsha and Non, and while I think both channels are good in their own ways, nobody really uses them because the drop buff is worthless.
The drop buff is worthless because all of your money is based around this little resource right here, this Agris. That's all your money. So why the fuck would you go to Arsha if it doesn't give you Agris? Like you're not really making very much more money.
In order for the actual buff to be worth, it needs to not be drop rate, it needs to be quantity. So instead,
pre-watched. You think I pre-watched this shit? Holy shit! Oh my god, that was a lot faster than I thought it was going to be.
Instead of getting, I'm just going to make something up because I don't grind. Instead of getting 5 trash drops on a regular server with your loot scroll, if you were to run Arsha Non or regular Arsha, instead of getting 5 trash buff or 5 trash drops, you should get 10, right? So you should double the trash drops rather than the rates, because most people nowadays, you can pop a bunch of scrolls and a bunch of nonsense and get within the rate, and who cares, right? Like, who really cares? I think dropping...
That is correct. If you want to buff Arsha, the way to do it is the trash loot. That way you consistently get better loot when you're on Arsha and it's not RNG. Now, you can leave the 50% drop, sure, whatever, who gives a shit. But that's the way to buff it. Now, that being said, it goes back to what I said earlier. Simply buffing the rewards for Arsha is not going to make people do Arsha. Okay, you need to make, again, first the content must be good, and then people will do it. The best way to reinvigorate Arsha is to bring back open world PvP. If open world PvP is dead, Arsha is dead. Okay, if guilds don't want to fight each other and there is no competition between guilds, and there's no friction there, then there is no open world PvP. And if there is no open world PvP, Arsha will be dead no matter how many rewards you give it.
Double the quantity would be a lot different. That would actually get players to think about going onto those channels, because what's going to happen is you're going to get griefed and it's not going to be worth it anyways. But at least at the quantities there, you're like, well, I didn't get 2,000 trash drop, I got 4,000 or whatever the number is, right? I'm just using 2x as an example. But, you know, there's really no reason to use Arsha. There's no reason to use Arsha and on. And you can't even guild deck people. So you go into a spot you want to grind, which, by the way, there's like 40 grind spots. So that's not even including all the channels and like...
Yeah, but you can only use 2 of the grind spots because they've basically completely throttled where you're allowed to grind in the game based on your gear score.
All these different spots.
Which is another problem.
Got to go into Elvia, out of Elvia, or whatever it might be, you know. With the new location in Danya, you're basically ungriefable because you just go into a hidden realm every hour. And, yeah, it's kind of killed player interaction, you know.
What's up, D? How
you kind of killed that ego-driven PvP. You don't really have a reason to do anything. I mean...
I'll be honest with you. I think my hot take on deck changes is that they don't need to bring back open world decks. They're not going to. They don't need to bring back one-sided decks. What they need to do is fix Node Wars. If they make Node Wars a lot of fun, it will make a lot of Node War guilds. A lot of Node War guilds makes for a lot of ego-driven competitive PvP, like Loads talked about before. If there are a lot of guilds on the Node War scene and they're all competing with one another, the open world, the decks will happen naturally, and the problem will solve itself. If you have 50 or 60 guilds in a PvP scene, and one of the guilds is talking a massive amount of shit and not accepting a deck, well then everyone just collectively agrees to not allow them into any fights for the week, and you just zerg them off of everything. So they don't get to Node War, they don't get to Siege, they don't get to do anything until they start accepting decks and stop being little bitches. The problem solves itself. But the problem is right now is there's not enough guilds to really enforce that rule. There's only like 10 to 15 like Node War guilds on any given server that are like able to compete with one another, right? And there's massive gaps between the top end guilds and the bottom end guilds. And so there's just not enough guilds to really enforce this. And so nobody really needs to be held accountable for anything or really create any sort of beef or competition because the guilds are really far apart. So it doesn't really matter. Right? Nothing really matters, and you can't punish them because you need them. Otherwise you can't fight, right? If there's only 6 competitive guilds that you can Node War against because you're a strong guild, then if you alienate one of those guilds, well, now you've effectively lowered the amount of guilds that you can fight for the week by a substantial margin, right? Whereas before it would be like, if there's a lot of guilds, you're like, that guild, who gives a shit about them? Don't let them fight. You know what I mean? It's cooked.
At the end of the day, most players do capped content, and you don't interact with
new guilds just get rolled and constructed and log off. Exactly. And then eventually they just quit because they're like, this isn't even worth it. Because unless you have somebody in your leadership core that has done it before and understand and can teach you, you will never beat these guilds.
Anybody you warlog. And a lot of that comes down to there's really not much to do. Before, you used to be able to go to a grind spot, whether you wanted to grind or not. You see, oh, hey, X guild member is there. I'm going to drop a deck. If he's there in 10 minutes, we're going to fight it out. And if he wants to stay and fight, he can, or he can leave. And, you know, if he calls, what most likely happened was he called a friend or two, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to call my friends. And then, you know, it slowly escalates until either one side brought too many or somebody got burnt out. One of the two. But that was fun because then those guys remember, oh yeah, I remember that guy. He came to my spot and he griefed me while I was grinding. You know, you don't have any of that anymore. And a lot of that, you know, that sort of...
Why have I seen this one GVG of Digital over camping Cho like 25 times? Well, it's the only time they've ever beaten Cho. So, you know, you gotta run it back.
Dynamic would build and build and build where you would fight these same guilds over in the open world. And then eventually, you know what? These guys, they beat us in open world because, oh, they zerg us. You know, all the excuses they got made. Everybody said, oh, they only beat us because they had 10 times more. Oh, they only beat us because they zerged us. Or, oh, blah, 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 right? And then it would spill over into construction. And then that's when you got the ego, where 1v1, you versus X guild. And that's where the fun of the competition kind of came from. And then, you know, that built from construction to siege. And I feel like we're missing a lot of that. And a lot of that came down from really open world. Open world kind of built that initial taste of drama within, like, whether it was a player or a guild.
I have seen entire guilds get folded like a lawn chair over a catastrophic like number of failures across like 1 to 2 months, all because one guy didn't want to get griefed at a grind zone and said something he shouldn't have one time in the open world. And that caused a GVG where more shit cascaded, and that caused a Node War where shit went south, and that caused a bad siege, which caused another bad Node War, which caused another bad GVG, and eventually the guild just folded, all because one guy. You can trace it all back to like one moment. It's actually just crazy.
And then you start looking at those players in guilds a little different, and now they're your enemy, and then you take it into Node War. And then from Node War, you take it into Siege, and then, you know, if you were friendly with another guild, you know, that guild would help you, and then that other guild would find someone to help them to fight another guild, and then that's when you came into alliances or whatever. And
Yep.
I don't think alliance is necessarily best for the game, but that's kind of just the way these sandbox open world, you know, games kind of develop is,
Correct.
you know, you against them sort of mentality, which was fun.
I hate this
and I
choke
think without
point.
decks and whatever, it's changed a lot of that.
I hate that choke point so
because
bad.
there's really
This
not
is
much
Hex
to do.
Murray
You just
here.
log in, you do your wars, you log out, unless you're a
Murray
person
Cave
with PvEs or
specifically.
but for the most part, PvP community, you log in, you log out. You do your wars, you log out. Especially with the meta, which I'll go over later.
You hate getting choked? You. As you run through this cave right here, believe it or not, it doesn't look like it, but that cave actually opens up over there, and people can shoot you from the high ground as you run through the little tunnel. And then you come out of this into the mouth here, and then there's this huge concave of people just absolutely blasting you. It sucks, dude. That cave sucks.
That's what I think about decks. You know, there's really no reason to log in because you can't just find some random guy grinding and gank him and hope his guild shows up. You know, you just, hey, you send a deck and the GM's online and he accepts it, cool, or he's offline, it doesn't go through, or he has perma decline on, or whatever it might be, right?
Man, they're farming shit.
Boom, fun's over.
They're farming them.
That kind of leads me to War of the Roses. In my opinion, is the worst game design PvP mode in the game.
And that's saying something.
Initially, I thought it was going to be a persistent open world Guild Wars 2 style World v World,
and that's saying something.
Mode on one channel, like OD1 basically, and it's just a permanent PvE PvP sort of mode.
Yes, yes, bro, that's what it should have been. Permanent mode on Odalita 1. You pick a faction side, and it's just always going, and you can always do shit. Right, and you can just push kind of like server wars, like they explained before, right? Where you could push the, you know, like nope. Instead, we got this.
But that's not what it turned out to be. We got this terrible MOBA triple lane PvP with people horsing around and backdooring, and man, I've done War of the Roses quite a few times, and I just think it's the worst game mode. I'll try to go over some of the parts because I know there's a lot of people.
I've spectated a lot of War of the Roses. I've done it a couple times myself. And I was the guy that like used to spectate it with the CMs back in the day. That's how long ago it was. I did it with Etsu. Anyway, there was some cool stuff in War of the Roses, but like they haven't really managed it at all. They've like updated some of the HP stuff and they've tweaked things here and there, but like they haven't really done very much. That being said, I think the person who's most qualified to speak on it is Loads because Digi has controlled. He's been like the commander before, like many times, and his guild has like run War of the Roses like a number of times. If anyone was going to know if this game mode was good or bad, it would be Loads.
I haven't done it, who haven't led it, who haven't used the skills, seen the skills, looked at the map. So I'll try to break it down quickly because I think it's just terrible. So first, it's triple lane. You got 3 lanes. The lanes are massive. Okay, you're going from Kama Castle to Odie Castle, and really you're horsing so much across this map. A lot of it is if your horse dies, you're basically useless. You have to find these little like transparent wisps to get your horse back, or else you're miserable. The triple lane, I think it's too much. It needs to be 2 lanes or something because it just incentivizes you just never PvPing. You just don't see people. It's 600 people, and a lot of times you're like, where the hell is everybody? Because I don't see anybody. So for a mode that's supposed to be a 300v300, and sometimes you're like horsing for 30 seconds and you don't see a single person, you see more NPCs than players. It kind of shows just, I'm not going to go too far into that. Yeah, 3 lanes, terrible. Should be at most 2, maybe 1. Backdooring, horrible. I think you shouldn't be able to backdoor. So let's say you only own the first point on the map. You shouldn't be able to backdoor 5 points into the back line. You should only be able to go 1 point past the front line, essentially. Wherever the front line should be, you should only be able to back cap 1 behind. I think being able to cut off the entire thing by slowly having a plat just horse across the map, hit the NPC, wipe, go back again, do that for 30 minutes until you eventually kill it because it doesn't regen. The NPCs don't.
Bro, his dice. Guys, Loads is an S tier rage baiter. You don't become the best guild in North America by not understanding how to rage bait people on like a knife's edge.
Regen. The only way to regen is to use a skill that's on a cooldown. It's terrible design. Speaking of skills, one, the UI isn't intuitive. There's no way for you to learn how to do it beforehand. You just had to hop in. You get this big ass map. Most of them are useless, the skills. There's one skill that gives you like a UAV. But when you use it, it lets the other team know, hey, they use UAV, so you just put your counter UAV on top of the UAV, and it completely nullifies it, because it says, in-game with a voice line, enemy has used such and such, and you're like, oh, they used it, okay, I'll use my counter UAV, and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna use my UAV now, and then the other team's like, oh, never mind, I seen theirs, terrible. Drop like a little ogre thing onto a backline to chip out some random lane. You drop like a little griffin onto your furthest attack point, doesn't really do much. Elephants, when they were broken, they were just ridiculous. Just literally bulldozing lanes with like 6 elephants. Terrible. The buffs have been nerfed, so I'm not really going to get on the buffs too much, but the buffs are there.
So we're playing BDO for the first time? Absolutely. It's a great game.
Really, the only one that matters is the middle buff, which is very
We are veteran players complaining about very end game systems.
powerful. Last 10 minutes, 15 minutes, somewhere around there. I think it's 10 minutes, and it has like a 20-minute downtime-ish, so very strong DSR buff. Also respawns elephants if you take it, and like some other nonsense. You also have these like carriages used for is people hop in them in AFK so they don't get kicked out. Especially a lot of the streamers, they just hop in and they just fucking don't do anything. They're just useless. The final boss currently, so for people that don't know, the final boss, because of all the PvE changes with like the AP changes they recently did when Adonia came out, you can completely ignore every single mechanic and you can just rush down the final boss. And if nobody's there to stop you and you just hit the boss, it'll probably die in like 5 minutes. So you can quite literally start War of the Roses, go straight to the boss, use your respawn on one of the final nodes, and just win War of the Roses in 5 minutes. Boom, you're done. So terrible mechanic. Obviously, same as the towers and NPCs, they don't heal over time. Neither does the final boss. So that strategy is there. It's still there. I don't know if people are using it weekly because I don't do War of the Roses. It's terrible fucking game mode. Ton of buffs and respawns. Respawns are terrible. You have 2 options. You have the quick respawn and you have the long respawn. And it's not necessarily bad, but you're pretty much dead for like 30 seconds guaranteed every time. But the worst part is it's really because it's so damn big of a map and there's so little PvP that by the time you get across the map, you get dismounted by some bullshit archer that shoots you down off your horse because you're horsing for 5 minutes to get across the map. And then there's some random little rat just sitting there on the road where your horse dies, boom, you're dead. And you're like, well, shit. I'll spawn the very far back in 30 seconds and I'll fly across the map again. It's terrible. I hate War of the Roses. It's just a...
It's so funny because that's exactly what I went through the few times I did War of the Roses. That's exactly what happened. You would ride all the way across. You'd get like 5 seconds of PvP if you even got to see your opponent die and then wait 30 seconds to do it again.
Horrible game mode. It could be fun if they made it persistent, just constantly going.
Yeah.
Maybe on like 2-hour cycles where every 2 hours just ended regardless or something. I don't know. Make it fun. I don't know. It's a terrible game mode. Last thing I'll really get into on it is Third Legion. Third Legion's useless.
Yep. Nobody listens.
There's no point for Third Legion. I guess the only thing is it prevents people from being gatekept from doing the mode. But I'm gonna be honest with you guys, when it's actual like Third Legions and you want to take it seriously, you have to make a Discord. You have to get all of these randoms into your Discord.
Oh, it's
if you're the main
so
guild,
hard.
you have to get all of these randoms into your
So
Discord.
hard, bro.
And what it comes down is you need another shot caller calling for your Third Legion because there's 3 lanes.
Yep.
So you have, some extra person shot calling Third Legion from your guild because if you actually want to win, you need to get the random 200 bozos to actually do something. So you have your main guild doing something, you have 200 bozos, that it's not 200 because you know damn well all 200 aren't looking at the roleplay chat or whatever the fuck it is to find your Discord's permalink to join your Discord. You get maybe like 50, 60 people if you're lucky. And, you just go from there. But Third Legion's useless. I think it should be 6 guilds at Q, 4 to 6 guilds at Q. It should be the top guilds. So that way all of the people that are going are basically from a guild that's known. Or even do like, I don't know, 10 guilds. The top 2 are the leaders, and then every guild after that gets 50 members they can send in. That way you're getting human beings and not like AI generated. I'm pretty sure half of Third Legion is AI generated accounts that the CMs and GMs just put in because they need people to fill the slots. I mean, that's the real thing. I know on NA for a while not enough people were queuing, and we literally went, I want to say, I don't remember how many it was, but we definitely went a couple War of the Roses.
It's literally just saying that these people are bots. Like these people play like bots, dude.
Without a single fight. Like there was not enough guilds that queued up. So that should kind of tell you how good the game mode is. And then the GMs, they did some sort of War of the Roses event, and after months of no War of the Roses, somehow we got enough participants to do it. So I think they're AI generated accounts that fucking end up on the Third Legion. They're absolutely useless. Terrible game mode. Only good thing is the reward. There's going to be one strong guild and one really shit guild, so at least it ends in like 5-10 minutes because they rush down the boss and you get paid like 4 to 6 bill. Like, wow. It's the best part about War of the Roses. But other than that, terrible game mode. Enough of that.
Hey, look at that. Another example of where you get paid, right? Huge, massive rewards for doing the game mode. And yet, how many times did he just say, terrible game mode, shit game mode, I don't do it anymore, shit game mode. This is the problem. This is what we need to get through to the devs. Rewards don't make good PvP content. Competition does.
RBF.
Foids Queen, yeah, slay. Love you, Queen.
It's dead. I don't know why we just don't get... I don't know. There's so many MMOs out there that have these...
What's he talking about? Did he just say RBF? Hold on. I just heard dead.
Terrible fucking game mode. Enough of that. RBF.
Yep.
Could be fun. It's dead. I don't know why we just don't get... I don't know. There's so many MMOs out there that have these BGs or whatever you want to call it, forms of PvP, whether it be Capture the Flag or Team Deathmatch or like King of the Hill or whatever, right?
They could theoretically just roll Red Battlefield into Guild League and just make it so that when you queue for like Red Battlefield, it's basically just a 10v10 of 10 randoms versus 10 randoms, right? And then they've got voice chat because we have voice chat connectivity because of AOS, right? So you get put in voice chat with 10 other people and you guys can coordinate with each other and it's just a 10v10 and you're fighting to win, right? That would be more fun than RBF currently is.
And somehow we ended up with the worst variant.
We ended up with the worst variant with the worst maps. Valencia is a shit map, bro. I don't care what anybody says. That map sucks. And that's coming from somebody that used to do RBF. I haven't done RBF in years, but still my DK is rank 5 RBF on a lot of servers because that's how much RBF I did back in the day. Shit game mode for years though now. Where is RBF? Isn't the event going on right now? We have 40 people doing RBF and the weekly goated like RBF event is going on and we have 1 queue essentially worth of people going on at peak hours. It's 6 p.m. Central Time for NA right now. I know that EU has a little bit more people that do RBF for sure. NA is so
and RBF on the worst maps with, I don't know, we had DRs based on your HP and points that reduce your DR if you're near. Terrible.
Everybody remember Garmoth Nest for RBF? Pepperidge Farm remembers. God, our developers sometimes.
Terrible. RBF in theory should be fun. Why don't they just copy other games? It's still on-demand PvP, but it's dead because of all the terrible maps that we have.
They don't even need to copy other games. Just make it Guild League, but like randoms.
But I'm trying to speed this up and make it a little quicker. AOS.
I think that if you made RBF a 10v10 game mode, that like you could even put rankings in it, like AOS has, right? You could make like you could add rankings so that there was like matchmaking too, and you could do like 10v10 randoms, like fighting with each other. That would be sick. That would be kind of fun.
It's actually a good mode. I think it's fine. My only gripe with AOS is why.
Oh, I was gonna say AOS, yeah.
Is it seasonal? Make it permanent. If you want to have a quote unquote season downtime, close it for a week or two, give people their rewards, open it back up after 2 weeks, and just keep doing that.
No. We get Guild League, remember? Because last time we definitely got Guild League. For sure. The devs didn't forget about Guild League. That didn't happen.
We don't need 3 to 6 months of, hey guys, AOS isn't in season right now, so you have to do hardcore or Guild League or whatever. Just make it, hey, we're gonna have a downtime of 1 to 2 weeks. You
What's
know, you guys are good.
hardcore?
We're gonna go through it, give the rewards and whatever, let it go. It's a good game mode. People like it. People enjoy it. Let people do it. Custom queues that they have, the little custom system where you can make your own lobbies, amazing. Nothing I really say about AOS besides that.
Right.
Guild League, same thing with AOS. Why is it seasonal? Leave the shit open with AOS.
Thank you.
If you're scared of
Guild League has issues. Maybe he'll talk
the
about
two
it.
competing with each other, AOS and Guild League, I would say the plus side to AOS is you can solo queue. Downside to Guild League is that you need guilds. So I think it's fine to have people.
That's why I was just saying is that RBF should just be Guild League. You just put 10 random people on each team, give them a voice chat, let them go. People would love that.
Queuing AOS.
Same maps and everything.
When they can't do Guild League because let's say their G League team
Doesn't give a shit about his rewards. This guy doesn't give a shit, bro.
doesn't have enough people or whatever it may be. That's fine. Let people queue AOS and have them both at the same time. I do think that there should be 2 separate queues for Guild League.
I think that I don't know. I will respectfully disagree. I think that AOS and Guild League at the same time would create issues because they would pull off of each other. This is the biggest issue.
It's running. There should be
because there's just not enough people on the PvP scene anymore. If the PvP scene was crazy alive like it was 2 or 3 years ago, then it would be fun.
of Guild League, and then there should be the around Guild League. You know, they tried to make it, and I think in the last season where you can have 3 teams at the same time, it was really buggy, so we never got to use it that much. But basically, you can have Team A queuing, they get the main games and actually count for points. Then you have Team B and C that could potentially queue. The problem is the gear disparity and the guild strength ended up killing it over time because I think guilds are a little too scared to go in there because at the end of the day, it's still ego is still supposed to be competitive. Like people want to go in there to win. Like if you're on the A team, quote unquote A team for your guild,
look at that, guys. Another example of where you just really want to be competitive.
Want to win, and I know it tilts people when they're fighting.
Even if you're like a low end guild, like you're some like PvE guild that just does Guild League because you got a lot of homies and you're just having fun, you still are playing to win and you're still playing competitively. It's just fun.
Here's an example. If they have to fight the Pecco team, they have to fight the Digi team, they have to fight the BR team, they have to fight the Vaga team, and let's just say you're a weaker guild. Nobody else.
The biggest problem with Guild League is that your guild is just like there's this huge discrepancy of Digi, BR, like vagabonds and show and whatnot versus all of the other normal people. And if you have to queue into the same guilds every time, it's brutal. It's brutal. And the real reason why they probably didn't give it back last time is because they realized that not enough people were participating in it. So they probably are thinking about either reworking it or just removing it altogether. Like, that's probably the real reason. When the reality of the situation is they could like legitimately just make RBF into basically Guild League, and a lot of people would do that. Like, especially if they did it between AOS seasons. Oh, people would love that shit, bro.
So you have to fight them over and over and over. And that's why I think the quote-unquote for fun practice queue or whatever it might be should be there. When you're just getting absolutely manhandled by a real team.
Why are we still playing this game? Because it's an amazing game, bro. Best combat in MMOs by far. 100%, yeah.
And I think
we're all just still playing this because we're hoping that the devs will listen to anything that we have to say at any point. And I want to be clear, the reason that you guys aren't making any money in November is all of us. Yeah. Hi. We're the reason you're not going to make any money in November, and we're the reason you're not going to make any money in December either. Keep it up. We'll go for 2026.
Probably the biggest downside to Guild League is the fact that there's no custom queue. Why do we not have a custom queue like AOS? We already have the technology. AOS already has the custom lobby thing where you can just invite the people and run the game. Do that for Guild League. It'll allow fun in-houses. It'll allow fun, inner guild also kind of drama where you're like, you guys aren't that good, blah, blah, blah. And then you end up making drama. Like, this is a way to allow that kind of like pseudo deck system where you're like, oh, well, bring your best 10. We'll bring ours and we'll do a custom queue in the G League and you end up fighting. And,
Wouldn't that be cool? Then they could add a spectate for it, and we could have best in guild tournaments that are like, we could actually have 10v10 best in guild tournaments where guilds get really sweaty and bring their top 10 players. Like, that would be sick. It'll never happen, but that would be sick.
Fun like that. And while you're doing that for the custom queue, give us 10v10, give us 15v15, and give us 20v20 for the custom queue. Whether or not that's the actual real G League queue that they use for the ranking system, whether it's 10v10, like I know that's our current one, let us have the custom queue, but the ability to make it 10v10, 15v15, 20v20. That's what I think.
He's asking for the Throne and Liberty Wargame system. That's what he's asking for. He wants the Throne and Liberty Wargame system, which in fairness, you should be able to have. That's what we should have. It's true.
Other PvP game mode, hardcore. I didn't do it. I heard it was terrible. I heard it was basically people just did it for the money. They're making money and they just log out and they do it next week and that was it.
Yeah.
So I heard the rewards were really good, but the actual hardcore was terrible.
There's a pattern here. But don't worry, just buff the rewards. Let's listen to our BDO partners. Just buff the rewards. The BDO partners said they know what they're talking about.
That's pretty much it when it comes to PvP. I'll kind of go over a couple things.
Make sure the rewards are good, then people will do it.
Necessarily purely PvP, but they're kind of related to PvP. One's class balance. So first and foremost, guys, when it comes to class balance, it'll never be balanced. There will always be something that's meta. There will always be something that's broken.
That's what I said
But I think it's up to the game to tweak that and adjust the viability of class.
I think the hot take is that I think they do a pretty good job with class balance. I know that's a super hot take. People are going to get upset with me for it, but I think overall they do a pretty solid job with class balance. Many years ago, it was a very different story. You rewind the clock 5 years, Protected Area and Succession Wizard were literally, I just made me want to slam my dick into a car door. And anyone that was there remembers. But like, it was just like rotating PA rotations in large scale, and we had that for years. That was annoying. But like, I would say that the devs that currently do our balance right now actually do a pretty solid job of keeping it relatively up to date. Probably because they're balancing off of AOS.
Classes, the overpowered classes, tweak them down, bring some up. It's always necessary. Class balance will never be easy. What I will say right now is that because of the direction of the game, iframe classes and SA trading is just very powerful right now, especially with the nerfs to grabs. And over time, the overall nerfs to slows has completely changed the pacing of the game and has made a lot of classes a lot more strong than they were previously, when you could be slowed by, let's say, 50%, or Zerker was just running out of nowhere a lot of pairs with a grab. They missed it, boom, they have another good grab. Now without those, a lot of classes are really annoying, and you can kind of see it, but that's just kind of how it's going to be when you're adjusting things. I can't really say this is a good or a bad, but that's just kind of class balance as a whole. Gearing for PvP is the easiest it's ever been, especially to get into capped, which is what I would say most, at least in NA, most of the players participate in this capped.
Yep.
Very easy to get to a point.
Uncapped is another story.
I actually think it's still too hard to get really high end, and a lot of it comes down to once you get to a certain point, you're in this like hamster wheel of crons, and you get to a point where you're hitting these like boring gains because you have Karazad, you're trying to go for deck, and you're trying to go for Nov, and you're trying to go for Oct, or whatever it might be for weapons, and it's just like, it's still too boring, and I think it's probably like the gear gap is still really high, and it's still pretty
What
tough
did I tell?
for lower end players.
What did I say? Like, what did I say before? That guy said, is BDO worth getting into? I said, absolutely. I said, you're kidding yourself if you think the BDO is not a good game, right? Especially for like the early mid-game players, right? It's not until you reach Adonia when you have to start going for Hex, Sept, Oct, Karazods, or even grinding for the Pen Devos. That's when the game really slows down and you're like, man, and you start getting like all the weekly gated content. That's when the game really slows down and becomes frustrating for a lot of players. And that's exactly what he's explaining here.
Reach that because you're on a cron wheel, really. But I won't really comment too much on gearing. I mentioned it earlier. Guild caps, guild alliance sizes. I don't know. I've been running 150 man guild for a while. The one thing I'll say is make it so that guilds can meet the cap with one guild. Because right now, the only reason
I think it's important that everyone be able to voice their opinions, guys. Okay. Very, very big proponent of free speech.
Alliances are there is because
it's important that you believe that.
They need the two guilds to reach
for real though
150. Why not just make it so one guild can go 150? And if two guilds wanted to combine for the alliance, you know, they would.
Whoa. Hold on, say this again.
One thing I'll say is make it so that guilds can meet the cap with one guild. Because right now, the only reason
Yes. Okay, so he's talking about alliances, and I've said this a bunch of times. I'll give my quick take on alliances, and then I'll let him go because we just heard a lot of what he was going to say there. Alliances right now, for those of you that don't know, cap out at 150 man alliances. So you can have 150 people in your alliance total, which you'll notice is more than the 100 man guild cap. So right now you can have 100 people in a guild and 150 people in an alliance. What this means is that you have to ally with another guild in order to be competitive in any form of PvP for the most part. Like Node Wars and Siege. Okay. You must ally with another guild, which a lot of people, A, don't want to do. B, makes it a lot harder to do politics and manage 150 people than it is to manage 100 people. And that's coming from me. Like the difference between these two is massive. It's hard enough to manage 100 people. 150 is rough, man. I think that the alliances should be toned back to be maximum of 100 man. That way, like Loads just said, they need to be equal. The maximum guild size needs to equal maximum alliance size. Okay, so if the maximum alliance size is 100, then the maximum guild size must also be 100. Okay. Now, he is implying that you could have a 150-man alliance and 150-man guilds. That way you don't have to make an alliance if you're running a guild. But in my opinion, I think it's too hard on leadership cords as it is to run 100 people. I think that managing 150 people is extremely difficult, especially for new leadership cords that are still learning the ropes. Maybe it's easier for Loads because, let's be honest with you, they're on AFK mode. They don't have very much to do because everything's already set up. The leadership already knows what they're doing. They're just going through the motions. Everything's kind of set. No big deal. But especially for newer guilds that are building for the first time, it's extremely difficult to recruit, maintain, and run a guild of even 100 players, much less 150. And what this means is that new guilds are not encouraged to be started in BDO because the guild feels like not only do they need to have 50 to 70 players on their own in order to be competitive, they also need to ally with another group of 50 to 70, which is going to trust that, you know, their group is not like griefing them, right? So like there's so many barriers to entry for a new guild to actually start and get off the ground, and trying to recruit people for PvP and BDO has never been harder than it is right now. It is super hard to get people to do Node Wars in BDO, like getting new players into the game or even recruiting players that have been on the Node Wars scene for a while. It's very difficult to do because the pool has never been this small before, right? And it doesn't encourage new guilds to grow. They need to decrease the maximum alliance size down from 150 to 100. They used to have it at 150 man, at least in my opinion. They used to have 150 man alliances because it was part of an old Node Wars system. It was a part of they changed Node Wars in the past and it didn't work. And so they changed Node Wars. Then they increased alliance caps to 150 man because every single Node War was a 100 man Node War. Yes, you heard me right. Every single Node War was a 100-man Node War, and it was burning out everybody. Like all calling your guild every single day for war was miserable. It sucked. Nobody wanted to do it. So they made alliances 150 to alleviate that stress. Well, eventually they just scrapped that whole node war system and they reverted the node war system, but they did not revert alliances. So now we have this awkward thing where we have 150 man alliances with 100 man guilds. And that's right. And what a lot of people say is that if you decrease alliance size, essentially you increase the overall amount of guilds participating in Node Wars. So even with the same amount of people participating in Node Wars, say there's 600 people participating in Node Wars, total Node War participants, okay? If this is divided by 150, well, you're only gonna have 4 guilds, right? If this is divided by 100, you're gonna have 6 guilds. The counter argument for this is to say that, well, we don't have enough leadership cores to run small guilds or to run all of these different guilds. Guilds are gated by leadership cores. And to a certain extent, that is actually true. But also, it would encourage leadership cores to spring up out of nowhere and actually make a guild if it was a lot easier to get into Node Wars as far as like a guild goes, right? If they don't need to reach that 150 man cap, they just need to reach like 30 or 40 members, and then they can ally with another 30 or 40 man guild. They can make Node Wars work. Alternatively, if the man caps for Node Wars are reduced from like, oh, you need 60 people for this Node War to you only need 30 people for this Node War, that would make it a lot easier for guilds to spring up and actually like be relevant as well, right? So like lowering the number of people required for Node Wars would help tremendously, and lowering alliance sizes would also help tremendously. Yes, you're gonna go through a phase where you need to have more leadership cores, but I think that people would be more willing to run Node War guilds if it was less work, and it would be a lot less work if they don't have to manage 150 people between 5 different guilds. Right?
Alliances are there.
Isn't the argument that not all 600 members are available all the time, and then not all 600 members in for alliances PvP? First of all, Acute Penguin, love you, buddy. It's good to see you. For those of you that don't know, this was the leader, one of the leaders of Apocalypse back in the day. I guess we'll just we'll call him Noah, but we'll call him Penguin, sure. But like he led one of the top PvP guilds in North America for a very, very long time. Yeah, the argument is that people burn out if they're called to do Node Wars every single day, right? So like on any given day, a leadership core can only realistically call on about 40 to 50% of the total players in their guild, if they actually want to pull the numbers in an active Node War guild. In a less active Node War guild, the percentage will be a lot less. But we'll talk about an actual like active Node War guild, right? So like if a Node War requires 60 people to come to the Node War, right? And your guild size is only 100 man, or your guild size is like, if your max guild size is 100 man, well, that's going to be really hard to pull, because that's the upper end of what, like how many players are actually going to show up for your Node War every day. It's difficult to pull that many players to Node War consistently, right? And the reason they changed it originally is because the previous system required 100 people to show up to Node War every day. Well, you can't pull 100% of your players every single day. That's unrealistic. So they increased the alliance cap to 150, and it still did not work. That's why they had to revert it, is because it was still burning people to a crisp and it wasn't fun. Nowadays, again, I think that they need to roll alliances back, and I think that they need to take all of the man caps for Node Wars need to be scaled down tremendously. Like all of the 60-man nodes need to be scaled down to like 40. The 40-man nodes need to be scaled down to like 25 or 30, right? And most nodes need to be 25 to 45-man nodes most of the time. There can be one node a night that's like 60 to 100 man. And sure, whatever. If guilds want to do that, then they have the option to do that, right? But like most of the nodes need to be 25 to 45 man Node Wars, because that will help new guilds spring up, because they need to pull less people to their Node War. And it will also mean that the optimization for the game, you'll have a lot less complaints about optimization, because there's just less people on the screen. So there's less chances for the game's spaghetti code to fuck up, right? You're going to have less lag. You're going to have less issues overall, because the man cap is much lower, and people will have more fun as a direct result of this. So I think this is just an objective win if you roll alliance sizes back. It's kind of a debate among people. Some people are like, and I guarantee you the reason the devs don't want to do this is because they don't want to destroy the communities that have been built. But like, it's really not going to destroy the communities at all. Like yes, like guilds are going to have to go through this phase where they have to cut another guild and that's just the way that it's going to be. But like, it will in the long run be a lot better for the PvP scene, in my opinion. But what Loads is suggesting is that you could raise the total guild size to 150 man guilds, right, to match the 150 man alliances. I think that is okay, but it's not really going to help anything, mainly because you're still managing 150 people. And it's still going to be really hard for guilds to recruit that many people. But as long as these two numbers are the same, he's saying that it's going to be okay. I would disagree on that, but hey, you know, we're all going to have our opinions.
There is because
show me a guild with 150 people online. Exactly. Right? Exactly. That's why, again, you need to lower the man caps for Node Wars. Need to be lowered, badly lowered, so that, you know, the current standing amount of players on a Node War scene can actively play. And this is another thing that the developers don't understand. And so I'm going to explain this again as in plain English as possible. And I haven't heard Loads talk about this, but what the developers think is as you increase from T3 to T4 to T5 Node Wars, T5 Node Wars, for those of you that don't know, this is uncapped. Okay. This is uncapped Node Wars. The developers think that as you increase the tier size, the number of people participating in the Node War must also go up. And this is incorrect logic. So in other words, a lot of the uncapped nodes that we see are 60 to 100 man Node Wars in a lot of cases, over 40 in almost every case. And this is extremely bad logic. This is not how it works. The reality of the situation is if you want to bring back uncapped PvP, it actually needs to be the reverse, mainly because a lot of guilds, a lot of mid-tier guilds, they have probably 10 to 30 people that are, if they have 100 people in the guild, they probably have maybe 30 that can compete on uncapped with like 830 plus gear score. Okay. But like, if they have to show up for a 60-man Node War, well, then they're going to have 30 people that are basically irrelevant to the outcome of the Node War, right? And so it becomes very difficult if you scale up this amount of people. Less guilds can actually participate on uncapped because you've scaled up the amount of people required so much. Also, even in the really top end guilds, it's really hard for even a guild like Digital or Black Rose or ERM Alliance like Vagabonds and stuff to pull 60 to 100 people to any Node War during the week. That's hard. Maybe they could do it one time, but like that's not something that you really expect a top end guild to be able to do. Instead, if you basically made it so that a lot of you scale it kind of oppositely, where like T1 forts, I know that T1 is currently occupation, but if T1 forts were like 55 man and then it scaled down and uncapped was like most uncapped Node Wars are 25 to, like I said, 45 man nodes, people would love that. If you made a decent amount of uncapped T5 nodes that were 25 to 45 man nodes, people love that PvP. Uncapped PvP and BDO is super underrated and people love it. People do love it. The problem is they don't feel like that they can do it because a lot of the uncapped nodes currently are such high man caps that it's very difficult to make for any guilds to make this happen, right? Especially for like the mid-tier guilds, and there's such a small amount of guilds on the Node War scene. The mid-tier guilds cannot participate on uncapped above about 30 or 40 people because they just get absolutely gapped. And even on 30 or 40 mans, they can fight, but it's still one-sided, but at least they can fight, right? But in a 60-man situation, you're not going to have family be, or I mean like a guild below family, like, I don't know, some T1, T2 mid-tier guild, like Havoc is a good example. It's not going to be able to stand up against family on an uncapped node above about, 20 or 30 people. And even then, it's going to be hard, but at least it would be more approachable for them. So like, this needs to be like the man caps for Node Wars need to be scaled down tremendously. And again, the developers have like a backwards thinking on it. They're thinking, oh, it's a higher tier. There's more rewards. It needs to be more grandiose. And they're thinking about it all wrong. You need to think about it like how many people in the game can physically actually participate in uncapped, realistically speaking, right? And if we want mid-tier and low-tier guilds to be able to scale into these uncapped Node Wars, we want them to be able to experience uncapped Node Wars, right? Because if a lower tier guild gets to do a 25-man uncapped, and they're like, oh shit, guys, we actually were able to kill a few Digital there. We were able to actually kill a few Vaga there, right? Because they do have a fair amount of people that are actually good at the game and are and have gear, right? But like it encourages them to be like, all right, guys, keep grinding, because then we can do the 35 mans, and then we can do the 45 mans, and then we can go to siege, right? Like there's like it encourages guilds to get more active in the game as well, and you'd have more guilds participating in uncapped in this case as well. You also have the same exact thing that I just explained for uncapped is also true for T4 and T3 nodes. But you do need to scale down the man caps, but it doesn't need to be nearly as much in capped, because more players can participate in capped node wars. But that's my 2 cents on it.
You need the 2 guilds to reach a 150. Why not just make it so 1 guild can go 150? And if 2 guilds wanted to...
Back in my day, Hex Sanctuary was a 30-man T4 node, and T4 was uncapped back then. Yeah.
Mine for the Alliance.
Yeah, and wasn't that like the most fun node of the week? Like...
You know, they would do it because they needed to get members. So, for example, Digital right now, Digital and Black Rose, we don't really, we function as 1 guild. So if it was just Digital without Black Rose, those players would be fine. Like, it wouldn't change anything. Another example of this in the past was Cho Nation and Chomies. They were essentially Cho Nation, but they needed a separate guild for the plus 50 slots to reach 150.
Yeah, he's right. But that only really works for those 2 examples. Corrupt could never generate that success. Barcode could never generate that success. APOC was an exception. They were already in Alliance before then, so you can't really use them as an example. But like, and his thinking on this, like what he's saying is that like, well, guilds should be able to manage this because a lot of guilds do this already. And most guilds are not able to maintain 150 people. The simple fact of the matter is most leadership corps cannot maintain 150 members. They just can't do it. It's too much. It's too much work. It's a tremendous amount of effort. And so that's why I think that they just need to tone it back.
And I think they should just make it so that you can reach whatever the cap is, 150, without needing an alt guild.
That is true. That would make it better. For sure.
Wicked Cheer Dex 100. What would you think of an instance 10W server where teams were randomly assigned to construction style forts that were auto-generated?
Well, that's basically what I suggested before. I literally just like, again, my suggestion to fix Node Wars is to scrap occupation, make it the old Node War system, so constructed. However, you just click the sign up button. You don't know what team you're going to be on. You just click the sign up button. If 4 guilds apply, and we're going to rank them, rank 1, rank 2, rank 3, and rank 4. Okay. Number 1, this is the strongest guild. This is the 2nd strongest guild. This is the 3rd strongest, and this is the weakest guild. Okay. If the system automatically said, okay, well, we have 4 guilds, we're going to take the strongest guild, and we're going to take the weakest guild, we're going to put them on the same team, and we're going to have them fight guilds 2 and 3. And it placed them on opposite sides of the Node War zone. It automatically built the forts for them and created the teams. And when the node, 15 minutes before Node Wars, you know what the teams are, right? You get to coordinate with your team and, boom, you're off to the races. That's it. That's all it needs to be. You just take the old Node Wars system, you take the politics, the ridiculous politics out of it, and it auto-generates teams with auto-built forts. Then, and this is important, the 4th guild, because in Node Wars, you're always worried about the weakest guild. And this is a lesson for the developers and Perlibus to understand. You are not worried about guilds 1, 2, and 3 quitting the game. You are worried about the weakest guild quitting the game. You need to have a system that makes it the system fun for guild 4. Okay. If you have like a 1v1 system, the weakest guild in every system is the odd man out. They're the ones that are having the least amount of fun, and they're the ones that need to keep showing up. Because if 4 stops showing up, then 3 is the strongest guild, and then the same thing happens to 3, and they stop showing up, and then the same thing happens to 2, and the system cannibalizes itself. But if you put guilds 1 and 4 on the same team against guilds 2 and 3, what you've created is a situation in which guild 4 can still win, and they can still have fun because they're with another strong guild. So they can work their hardest and still win this fight. Okay, but if the teams are unbalanced, or if you create a system in which it's not fun for the weakest guild that shows up, but eventually the weakest guild stops showing up.
Just resubscribed for 11 months. Blue Squad, let's go.
Okay, we saw this with Occupation. This is exactly the problem with Occupation. When Occupation first came out, we had like 60 or 70 guilds signing up for Occupation every night. And then slowly but surely, as I said, the scene started to cannibalize itself because you had guilds 1 through 70, right, showing up, and Guild 70 wasn't having any fun, and eventually Guild 70 stopped showing up. So then Guild 69 became the weakest. Nice. And then they stopped showing up, and then 68 stopped showing up, and then 67 stopped showing up, and then 66, and so on. And then you got it all the way down to where it is right now, where there's only, there's only like a handful of guilds left because the scene has cannibalized itself. Like, so like you need to make a system that is fun for the weakest guilds. And that's why I said that the system that I've created here alleviates the burden of leadership, and it also makes it easier for guilds to get involved in it. And it also helps guilds interact with each other for the very first time, because they have to coordinate with one another, which is very, very cool. And I think would be very healthy for the scene as well. It also creates rivalries and things like this. So like, I think that scene, that's my best guess for how to create a better Node War scene based on what they've done to the game currently.
Probably the biggest thing when it comes to guild alliances, guild size, guild caps, or whatever. And there's like this notion that just because if you were to kill the alliance sizes, I know a lot of people mention this, like we should bring back 100 man, or even someone said 75 man. I've even heard 50 mans is
that's a yikers. I would not 75 and 50. I wouldn't go that low. I would just keep it at 100.
Cap guilds. And people always assume that, oh, so many more guilds will be made. And while I do think that some guilds will be made out of necessity for people to go places, that's not always the case. I think a lot of the reason why we don't have more guilds now is because at the end of the day, people have to run those guilds. Yeah. And a lot of leadership burns out. So let's say we went from...
Again, and that's a fair argument, right? To say that like, yeah, there wouldn't necessarily be more guilds. I do think that there would be more guilds because it would be easier to approach leadership. And that's my opinion, right? My opinion is that it would be easy if you make it easier to approach leadership for, new leadership cores, people will rise to the occasion. That's how communities form. I originally was not a guild lead. I was just a shot caller, and I was going around with the groups of my friends. I rose to the occasion to try to lead Dismantled because my friends needed me to. I didn't want to. I felt like I had to. And a lot of people fail that way. You look at Canadian Corgi is a perfect example. He runs Pecco. That doesn't want to be GM. He doesn't want to run the guild. Do you know why he does it? It's because his friends need him to run that guild, or that his friends can't have fun, right? He did it out of necessity. And I do think that if it was more approachable, we would have more leadership cores. He might think differently, but hey, that's fair.
Right now, 150 to guilds were forced to go to 100 men. And let's say we had 10 guilds, right? You would get another 500 players if we went from 10 guilds with 150, and we told them they had to get rid of, 50 people. We'd get more guilds. We'd get 500 players back in the pool. However, that doesn't mean we'll get 5 guilds. Because what happens is, in order to get 5 guilds, you need to get 5 guilds worth of leadership. That means you need your shot caller, especially if you're nowhere guild, you need your shot caller.
It's a fair argument. It is.
Guilds that have been fortunate enough to have 1 or 2 callers that have been around for years, you don't really understand the struggle of some of these guilds to kind of develop a shot caller and bring one up or get one for your guild. So, you need that.
People have no idea the difference a good shot caller makes. No idea. And these new players, they've never experienced a good shot caller, so they don't know. But the cataclysmic difference of like Loads shot calling you, or some rando that just started and who is just like energetic and charismatic, right? Night and day. It's completely night and day difference to whether or not your guild will succeed. True. If you have Loads shot calling one team and you have Drift Panda shot calling the other team, Loads' team is going to win every single time. 100%. It doesn't even matter what the teams are. It just, the other team's gonna lose. Like, that's just how it is. I mean, like, bro, am I wrong? Am I wrong? Okay, like, am I wrong? I'm right. Okay, I mean, I'm not wrong.
You need your defense guys. You need, there's a lot of moving pieces that you need. So just because you have 500 people,
does Drift Panda still exist? To Drift Panda's credit, Drift Panda does an exceptional job of making sure that his guys are having fun at Node Wars. They just don't necessarily win a whole lot. They're having fun though. So Drift is a good caller, but in terms of what Loads is talking about is a shot caller that knows the game. So knows how to macro, how to place a flag, how to push a base, how to teach people how to Node War, right? Because that's what the shot caller is you're the teacher, you're the sensei, you're the one who is commanding the troops. If you don't know how to do it, no one does, right? And so like, there's a massive difference between somebody that does understand how to play the game and push something and someone that doesn't. And while you can be having fun in a Node War, your guild really doesn't get any stronger if your shot caller doesn't get stronger. And that's the truth.
People doesn't mean you'll have 5 guilds worth of leadership to run guilds. What will happen is people will try to fit into those other 10 guilds that are established. And they'll do their best to try to fit in, try to make themselves into those guilds, rather than try to be the people to make a new guild. Like, you'll have more chances of people quitting the game than you'll...
Did Hercules join Digital? Hercules and I have a meeting scheduled for Tuesday where he's going to come talk to me about a bunch of stuff, and I'm gonna coach him through some stuff. He's going through some stuff right now, so I don't really want to harp on him too much.
Probably run into a group of people being, yeah, we'll make the guild. We'll run one of those guilds. So, that's my take on that. I've heard this argument so many times, beaten to a point, and a lot of it comes from people who've never ran a guild. And I think, in theory, it sounds cool. Like, let's go from 150 back to 100, and let's get 5 guilds worth of players back in the pool. But these are also people who've never ran a guild, never shot called, they've never done the politics, which I'll get to in a bit. You know,
Well,
they've never done all these things.
I have done all these things, and I still think that it needs to be rolled back to 100. But I also respect his argument. Like, if you wanted to roll max guild size up to 150, that would help. Unironically, that would help. He's right about that. But it would also help to roll them back, right? And there's an argument for both sides. But as it is, right now, where we're at with 100-man guild caps and 150-man capped alliances, this is terrible. And we all agree that that's terrible. So if you want to scale guilds up to 150, that will work. Or, like, it won't work necessarily as well, but it will work. And it will make it a lot easier to manage those guilds for the leadership cores. Because then you don't have to have... You have no idea what it takes to have somebody running a shell of a guild, and then you're worried about them stealing the shell of the guild, but you're also worried about, okay, well, they have to promote people, and then there have to be officers online, the GM has to be online. It's annoying. It's really annoying to have to run 2 guilds like that all the time. Very frustrating. So having everybody in one shell would be excellent. His way will work. His way will work. My way will work too. I think it would work better in the long run, and it would be a little rough initially to split up all these guilds, but I do think that it would be better in the long run. That being said, both ways will work.
And it's a job, guys. At the end of the day, it's a...
People make it sound like it's easy to kick 50 people. It's not. But you can't tell me that it wouldn't be better for the Node War scene in the long term if we got over that hump.
Annoying to do. Like, nobody wants to do it, but you do it so that your guys can have fun. That's really all it is. So yeah.
Also, I'm pretty sure there's 50 people in basically every Node War guild that could be kicked right now for inactivity.
Let's guild alliances sizes. The meta. Oh boy. I mean, metas have changed, guys. We've gone from wizards being these insane, like, unkillable machines to now they're just okay. But right now, I'll go over what we have right now. The rock meta, boulder meta, brick meta, whatever you want to call it. We're tanky as hell right now, guys. And
don't worry. Would it make you feel any better to know that the devs are aware? How many times have we heard in the patch notes that the devs are like, yeah, we're aware of the meta that's too tanky. We're working on it. You've been working on it for 6 fucking months. I've been hearing about how we know about the tanky meta, but you have done nothing to correct the situation.
Caller myself, like, I don't mind dying instantly or never being killable, but what I will say is right now, because of Karazads, which I think we're
just buy more AP. There is not enough AP in the world. You don't understand. I have all the AP in the entire world. I can't kill Choice if you paid me. If Choice walked away from his keyboard and went to the bathroom and I wailed on him for 30 straight seconds, I wouldn't be able to kill his character at my gear score. On a Dark Knight.
Especially with crystals being easy to obtain. I'm going to go out on the limb and say every single uncapped war you do, at least a fourth of the guild is boulder. Sometimes, probably up to half of a guild are going to be these unkillable boulders. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's boring. There's a lack of micro and macro when it comes from a shot caller's perspective because there's so many damn unkillable targets that, especially if you're, let's say, in a 70-man node war, and let's just say 25 people are boulders, that means you only have 45 people that are killable. And that's not even...
Yeah, well, the reason that so many people are boulders is twofold. One, you can't pull 70 people to an uncapped node war. Like I said before, most guilds cannot pull 70 people to an uncapped node war and actually have the bottom 30 players be relevant. Okay, so what they tell their players is they say, okay, everybody that's too low gear score to be relevant, just put on full tank gear and just run at the opponent. And everybody that has gear, try to win the fight. Okay, so like that is contributing to a big problem here. Okay, like so again, man caps being decreased would help this. It would not solve it though.
Including, you know, you have to account for there's people doing defense, so you have 5 people out of your ball on defense. You have some people doing cannon, so when you're ball fighting guild v guild, and it's basically 50v50 on a 75-man, 60v60. At least 20 of those 60 are going to be some unkillable boulder that you just have to ignore until the fight's over. And I think it's pretty bad for the game currently. I think on the inverse, one-shot meta is a little too extreme because it makes certain classes pretty useless, especially those without on-demand iframes. You know, one of probably the biggest classes that I will say that will get punished the most, and I'm sure people are going to be like, good.
Shy. The class that suffers the most in a one-shot meta are the children. The children get brutally murdered. In the one-shot meta, Shies are like, guys, I'm gonna hit. I'll be back in 30 seconds. That's just how it is, bro.
Or Shies. But at the end of the day, I'm not really going to go in Shy Buffs. They're very powerful. I don't really know what you could do with it. You can make it a pure support healer class or something. I don't know. But it'll hurt the most. And most players are going to be like, good. Nobody likes shies.
True.
But if the other guild has shies and you don't because your guys hate playing the game because they die instantly, you're gonna have problems.
I don't care if shies are suffering. I'm one of those people. I don't care because all of their usefulness comes typically right before the fight has started. Honestly, again, what's shy useful for? Buffs and debuffs, right? Buffs and debuffs. That's it. That's all they're useful for. They don't need to be tanky. Just buff us. And then just go back to doing nobody cares.
Another class that kind of is a big offender just getting absolutely brutalized is like Awakened Wizard and one-shot metas. You just die standing and it just feels terrible.
Awakening Witch is the same thing. Yeah, I feel that on a spiritual level.
So with that being said, I do think Pure Rock is probably worse than one-shot, but
it is. And I said that back in the day. People were like, we need a tankier meta. I said, be careful what you wish for. And now we have that tankier meta and everyone's like, never mind, we want to go back. I'm like, yep.
You really don't want either the extreme. And I know
and you don't want either extreme. He's right.
Stuck in this boulder meta for a while.
It's brutal.
So I'm trying to think as far as how long it's been, but it's been a while. We've had this boulder meta,
Years.
and they've said that they're going to fix it, and they're trying to tweak the crystals and whatever. There's so many ways they can try to fix it, really.
I'm going to fix it for you right now, devs. Are you ready? I'm going to fix this. It's going to take me 2 minutes. Less than that. I'm going to open my inventory. I'm going to click on my crystal page. I'm going to click on my PvP page. Do you see these bitterness crystals right here? Only apply in PvE. These two right here. Only apply in PvE, not PvP crystals. Not PvP crystals. Okay, handle it. Fix it. Fix it. Bitterness is fine. No, yeah, you're right. It's fine that it gives you like 60 gear score worth of defensive stats in, just for equipping bitterness crystals. And to be clear, the same thing should be done for like these Han crystals down here. These are really bad. These are really bad. I don't know how they fix this. I can fix bitterness, would help a lot. But I'll be honest with you, if somebody wants to just equip like this, they still have enough AP to do damage, but they're unkillable. They're completely unkillable. God forbid they have a lot of gear, they can do a third one. It's like, oh my God, bro. Or they can put on an evasion one too. Then you need accuracy to kill them. It's very, very frustrating. The problem with the tanky meta ultimately comes down to your artifacts and your crystals. The artifacts and the crystals are the biggest reason why people are way too tanky in PvP and is very little to do with the actual gear score. Like this number matters very little, right? It's this and your artifacts, right? Your artifacts and your crystals are so important. Because if you don't have those, well, you're just not competitive. It doesn't matter what your gear score is. And if you do have them, well, then great. Right, then your gear might matter a little bit. But the problem is in your artifacts and your crystal setup, and you guys chose to do this, so like, you guys need to find a solution to this problem. I think that bitterness is the first step to fixing the tanky meta, but like, you're gonna have to do that for more of them.
Remove some of the Land of Morning Light power creep with crystal defensives, our Hooms, bitterness, get rid of those, make bitterness only PvE.
You think I pre-watched this? I swear to God I did not pre-watch this. I swear, God is my witness. I did not pre-watch this. That being said, I've said the bitterness thing like 1,000,000 times. I have said that like literally 1,000,000 times. You guys know it. I have suggested that already. It's in my YouTube videos. You can see it. Nobody believes you. It's recorded. It's on YouTube. Ronan has seen it.
Some of the Hoom DR and evasion. Nerf the DR crystals again, but the Jin versions as well. One of the more maybe controversial takes is just give every class a percent shred. Something that might work pretty well, and I think it's something percent shred. Something that might work pretty well.
It's him. It was him. Everybody else just check their Discord right now. It was him.
And I think it's something that's sorry, that Discord notification. Hopefully you guys don't freak out, but something that might work.
What a communist, bro. He's got Discord notifications on as a guild league in BDO. That's crazy, bro. That's literally crazy, bro.
Make it similar to
That's
FT.
actually just wild.
So right now in Node Wars FT,
I've had my Discord notifications turned off forever. Because hundreds of people message me every single day. I try to be reachable. If somebody needs me, I can, even if it's some random viewer, I try to respond to people. And so I get hundreds of messages. I had to turn that notification off.
These give you a shred, DP shred, and it stacks. So what could be done is give
Ronan is not here. Me when I lie.
each individual player the ability to stack DP shreds. So let's say you have one of these boulders who jumps into the middle of a guild of 50 people. Allow him to get 50 DP shreds on his bar.
Sure.
That way, you know, these boulders, if they're getting hit by a ton of players, they'll die. But if there's only 1 or 2 players, you know, they still feel unkillable, if that makes sense. So
I like that. Sure. Yeah. Massive DP shred. Massive DP shred on every class in the game. Sure. I think that's fair. That's a decent way to do it too. But you still have to address the crystal issue too.
that might be a way to kind of combat this meta as far as people being unkillable. Because a lot of it has to do with people just feeling unkillable because they're in the middle of a guild and 10 people are hitting them and they're perfectly fine. But if you give them that flame tower effect where, let's say they got minus 20 DP from 10 people, all of a sudden you're minus 200 DP, and now you're thinking, okay, I'm really squishy now, and you just die. That might be a way to fix it. But, you know, I think they need to definitely go into something as far as the meta.
Can make it on crystals? No. I mean, like, they could. They could put it on artifacts too, but again, then you've taken a problem and you've exacerbated it. Now you've made the problem that crystals and artifacts are more important than your gear score. Now you've made the problem even worse, right? So like if there's problems in the future, you're going to make it more difficult for you to solve it.
I don't want to get
if the solution is to always make it a crystal or make it an artifact set or whatever, well then eventually, why the fuck are we even gearing when you can just equip crystals and artifacts?
But those are my opinions on it. Another thing as far as meta is we have way too many caps. We have T1,
True.
T2, Balano, Siege caps, and uncapped. They're all different. They all require, different AP scaling.
Just make everything Balanos caps, dude. Balanos caps are goated. Balanos caps are super good.
Top to bottom, they're all completely different. They feel different.
Maybe a little tankier than Balanos. You know what? Just make it AOS caps. Just do AOS.
Some classes feel better in Balano, Siege, and they feel in T2 caps, which it shouldn't.
Everything just AOS caps for all of it. Okay, so if you reach the cap, it feels like AOS. That's how it should be.
It needs to be uniform. I'm not going to go too deep into it because this video's already over an hour. But that's something they need to fix. I think it needs to be fixed and it needs to be looked at. Make it uniform. Make it fun. Don't make it to where we feel like we're unkillable, but also don't make it feel like you just get one shot. Most people prefer if you catch somebody CC'd, they should die. But people want to be able to, if they get hit standing, they can at least move a little before they die. So there has to be a little in between where if you get CC'd, you should definitely die.
Yep.
If you are just diving in, you're standing up, you shouldn't die instantly. So there has to be a good in between. I'll kind of get into the PvP incentive. I went over it earlier. Silver-wise, it's the best it's ever been. But player fun incentive is probably the worst it's ever been. You know, player...
I love being right. I do love being right. God.
Players don't really seem to be that involved in wanting to do PvP that much, and that's kind of why the game's been steadily declining. You can't really tell because we have so many fishermen, but...
One more time, Loads. That's it. Just one more time. God, just give it to me.
Players don't really seem to be that involved in wanting to do PvP that much,
Crazy! But the rewards are super high. But the partners said that the rewards are just...
And that's kind of why the game...
Yeah, I'm jacking off to this right now.
...has been steadily declining. And you can't really tell because we have so many fishermen, but I know as far as some of the old players that have come back recently and they all quit within a couple months because there's nothing to do. Yep. There's no fun incentive to play. There's nothing to keep.
The end game loop of all of these Korean MMOs, of every MMO ever, has always been PvP. PvE has never been a very effective end game loop in just about any game. Getting people to log in literally every single day to play your game, right? The best you could say is like Mythic raids in WoW, like Mythic Plus in WoW. But even that, people only log in once a week to do that, right? BDO was always consistently, people were logging in every day. What are they logging in for? Node Wars. What are they logging in for? GVGs. What are they logging in for? PvP. That's the end game, okay? And no amount of dungeons or raids or even like group PvE endgame content or endgame PvE grind zones, whatever, is going to change this. If you want people to play your game at the end game, in a game like BDO, the end game basically has to be PvP. You can make a lot of really fun PvE systems like group grind zones and raids and dungeons, and that's amazing. You should have that in your game by all rights. But the end game loop kind of has to be PvP because PvP is like that endless cycle. You're not doing it for the money, right? It's not about the money. PvP is about having gear and expressing the fact that you're better at the game or you've been playing the game more than the other player, right? And you can do that endlessly. PvE, though, it stops once you get the gear cap. PvE stops with the money. PvE is about the money in a lot of cases. People like to see the silver value go up or the value of their gear go up. And you just can't make a hamster wheel that keeps people on it more than once or twice a week consistently with a PvE endgame system. Every MMO ever has taught us this. But PvP, because people are not motivated by the silver and they're not motivated, they're motivated by ego. They're motivated by their guild. They're motivated by a sense of purpose that is greater than just watching a silver value go up. That's what makes a really good endgame loop.
And them active in the game. And that's what I mean by player incentive. There's nothing keeping you.
I'm doing it for a 1K gold bar, aka a billion silver. 1K gold bar should be a billion silver. Instead, 10K gold bar is a billion silver. I don't even know why they did that. That doesn't math at all. It doesn't math, but I don't care.
Engage in the game. There's nothing driving you to get gear, to get better, to sit in DA, to do whatever. You know, it's not there. But the silver value for winning node wars and sieges, best it's ever been. Now we just...
Yeah, because they listened to the partners last year that told them. Remember, 2 years ago, we were bitching that we didn't have enough rewards in Node War. And I think that here's a good side-by-side. 2 years ago, people were complaining, and our biggest complaint in the PvP scene was the fact that we had no rewards in Node Wars and Siege, right? But what we didn't know was that we were going to trade away having a fun PvP system for rewards. Now it's flipped. Now we have a terrible PvP system, or terrible PvP systems with the best rewards we've ever seen. And you'll notice that the PvP scene is much worse off now than it was 2 years ago. If you ask an average PvPer that PvP'd 2 years ago and PvP today, if they'd rather go back to what they had before versus what they have now, I think almost unanimously all of them would say yes. They would go back to what they had before. When almost in complete unison, they would all say that they would rather go back. Just take all the rewards away. Just give us back what we had before. Because it's not about the money. It's never been about the money. Having money would have been great when the systems were good and we could make the systems work. The systems weren't even all that great. We could just make them work as a community, right? That would have been a great time to just buff the Node War rewards. But no, you had to go change the whole system and now you fucked it all up. But don't worry, you have great rewards.
To get away from players to actually have fun in the game so that they actually log in. Last thing I'll go into is politics.
What up, Davina? How you doing, Queen?
Oh, man. This is strictly for NA. NA is purely politic-driven.
Had a moment.
Drop and go node wars like it used to be back in the day where, you know, you would look at the node war count and you'd be like, oh, man, 3 guilds dropped. I'm trying to find a fort spot and drop.
Oh, that was like 6 years ago, bro. You ain't doing that anymore. That was a long fucking time ago. Most people don't even remember when that was a thing, where you could just like look at a node and just like drop. That's not a thing, bro.
Try to get some PvP, hopefully. That's been dead for years, guys. It's not coming back. Maybe if we got like 30 men uncapped. No, people hate uncapped because the rock meta will be real. You know, it's just dead, guys. I don't know. I don't know really what to say. I don't know if there's really a good way to do it. Politics are here, and they're going to be here for the foreseeable future. So if you're one of those...
Again, I have proposed a solution to removing politics from Node Wars. Just do it in the game system. I'm not going to go through it again, but that's my solution for it.
Those people who...
There would still be some politics, but it would be healthy.
Truly despise politics. You know, there's T1s. There's the occupation version. And that's why I said it's...
People who despise politics are one of two people. Either one, they're lazy, or two, they don't understand what the word politics means because they're right. Like people that are like, yeah, I hate Node War politics. Node War politics are not what you think they are. What those people say is like, oh, Node War politics are when they automatically are going to give it to one guild no matter what. No. Node War politics are when you put guilds 1 and 4 on a team and guilds 2 and 3 on a team. The community does this. Currently, this is what the community has to do in order to make it a fair fight. And politics are required so that 4 keeps showing up. As I said before, if you don't make it fun for 4, 4 stops coming, and then 3 stops coming, and then 2 stops coming, okay? So like, in a crazy way, politics actually encourages new players and new guilds to get involved in the Node War scene in a really fun way because they get to play alongside Digi or something, right? Like, they have a chance of winning a Node War, right? Politics give us a, like, purpose on the PvP scene. It gives new guilds a chance to be successful, right? But you will have certain content creators or just people in general that will be like, I hate politics. That's either because they're lazy, because politics is a lot of work, or they just don't understand them because they've never actually done them in their lives, right? Yeah, and in fairness, politics has consumed hundreds of hours of my life. Hundreds. Any top-end PvP guild, anyone that's run a top-end PvP guild knows, bro, you set up this whole siege fight for the night. Whole siege fight. It's a 4v4. Everything's set up. Teams are made. Everyone knows we're going to fort. Okay, perfect. Perfectly balanced. You go to bed. You wake the up. There's over 1,000 Discord DMs notifications. Over 1,000. And you're like, dude, Fizz, what happened, man? And he's like, soggy happened, Blue. Soggy happened. Or some shit, right? Somebody decides to shit the bed, and then you gotta go back to the drawing board and like make it work. Like it was like literally all the time. Politics was a nightmare, right? And that's a fair complaint. And I do think that like if they just did that in game, right? If they made the politics, at least for Node Wars, happen in game, where like the system automatically separated people into teams and placed people on different sides of the Node War zone and had people just naturally work together, and all you had to do was click the button. It just builds the base for you. No problems. Great. Done. Like, it would fix it, bro.
Very leadership friendly. It's very like casual guild friendly. There's always that option. So, politics here, but what a lot of people don't realize, especially in guilds,
it's always soggy. I don't want to sound sexist, but there were a lot of fights where, how do I say this? We had it all set up correctly, and then certain leadership cores led by certain body types would come in and destroy the entire fight, and then we would all have to fix it. All right? That happened more times than I can count, okay? I can't tell you how many times. And I have my opinions on everyone that does politics, okay? And everybody has their opinions on people that do politics, right? Like, if you say, you're like, hey, Blue, we're working with XYZ person, I'm like, oh, or I'm like, oh, thank God, right? Like, Dotseb. Dotseb is a perfect example. That is a name on the NA PvP scene, the isolated guildmaster. Dotseb was just like me. He was honest, he was upfront, and he just said, yeah, I want this, I want that, and yeah, we're okay with doing this. He was flexible, he was reasonable, and he was approachable, okay? But like, there are other people that are just like, oh, dude, I gotta work with this person again, bro. And it's not always that it's like, that body type difference, right? But like, there were a lot of times, right? It's not just Soggy, is what I'm trying to say. Soggy would destroy fights, but Viz would too sometimes, right? It's I'm just saying, it could be anyone, and politics is a mess because of it, right?
Got to really be careful.
Don Skeptic, I hate doing politics with Don Skeptic because Don's doing politics with Don Skeptic is like the pulling teeth out. I would rather slam my dick into a car door repeatedly. Because one, Don doesn't know anything about macro and Node Wars. Two, Don is like the most unreachable person ever. And anyone that's been in family knows Don will just fall off the face of the planet out of nowhere. Like, I don't know if, like, look, I'm just being honest, okay? Like, I don't know if ICE showed up at his house and deported him or what happened to him, but he's just completely unreachable for like 8 hours, which can't be a thing, okay? You can't do this, all right, while you're setting up fights for Node Wars. Don will just be like, oh yeah, I'll agree to some stuff, and then he just won't respond, and family will be completely unreachable for a certain period of time, and it's a nightmare. They're shitty to work with. In my experience, the best guilds to ever work with on the entire NA PvP scene: Vertex, Apocalypse, Cho Nation. Best guilds to work with in terms of setting up fights, by far. By far. Like, and really it was Vertex and APOC, but Cho Roots was really solid too. Like, bro, some of the other leadership cores, man, kill me, man.
What information you're taking from your leadership, because there is a lot of nonsense going on in the background of politic discords and politics within these leaderships that, your guild will tell you one thing, your leadership will tell you one thing, but that's not really what's going on in the grand.
Yeah, my favorite thing is when the leadership core spins some crazy narrative about how the fight didn't go their way and it wasn't their fault because they got backstabbed. And again, I'm not going to point at certain leadership cores, but I know you know exactly who you are. Like, bro, Bro, the spin on the narratives, bro. You'd think that they were some gaming journalists or something. Literally insane.
Picture, you know, some guilds are kind of like trying to really dictate the perception. That's kind of
We don't know how bad it's going with Aeon 2 right now. It's whoa. What do you mean? What's bad? Is there drama? Is there drama? Because we covered it yesterday. I already put out a video and a bunch of people reacted to it.
going, and that's just human nature, and you can't really do anything about
You
that.
should always be expected to be backstabbed. No. You should never expect to be backstabbed. Like sometimes, maybe if you're working with somebody like Tim Allen, right, or some other distrustworthy slobber piece of shit, you might expect to be backstabbed. But I'll be honest with you, if you're constantly expecting to be backstabbed by your allies, you're just never going to have fun at Siege. It's just the truth.
But just take some things with a grain of salt, fellas. There's always another side to the story, especially in these BDL politics. That guys, it's a shit show behind the scenes. And,
it is. It's miserable.
Yeah, you know, you just kind of have to read between the lines sometimes and just understand that politics are always going to be here from now on. And,
well, none of the leadership cores want to admit that they made a mistake to their members. Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah, some of it is nonsense, guys. You really just got to deal with that. So that's really it, guys. I've been going on for a little over an hour, and I'm not editing or doing anything crazy, so this is literally how it's going to be. I'll try to drop this at some point, and you guys can, if you have any comments or anything, you can leave them down below. You can message me in Discord. If you don't have my Discord, I'm sure you'll find it eventually. I'm not that.
His Discord name is CM Ronan. You can find him in the official Black Desert server. That's probably the one that you share. But this is your guy. Okay, this is who you're going to message about all of your concerns for the game.
Hard to find, but yeah, thanks for listening, fellas. There might be timestamps, there might not be. I don't know. I don't do YouTube stuff, so yeah, that'll be it, fellas. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
He cut himself off. He cut it. Give it a thumbs up. Loads again. This only has 22 views on it. He sent it to me. I'm glad that he sent it to me. I'm glad to platform any ideas that somebody like Loads has. And I would encourage anybody, whether you're a PvPer or a PvEer, or maybe you want group content, or maybe you're enjoying the game and you disagree with my take on things or whatever. You can make a video about it and submit it, and we can platform it so that the devs might be able to reach it. It's my sincere hope that the developers listen to Loads here, even if they don't want to listen to me. I tried to basically, I included my ideas in there too, but I tried to let him talk and like you know, help explain what his grievances actually were here. Here's the video right here. I encourage you guys to go interact with it for what it's worth. If you're watching this on YouTube in post, please comment on the video. It does help a lot, or give it a like or a dislike if you don't like it, whatever. But that's how Perlibus gets the best feedback. That's how they get the best feedback, is that you comment on a video or you interact and they see something blowing up like that. That's a big deal for them.